Right. Okay, then good evening, everyone. Today we'll be doing history. Yes. So I hope you all have tried out the questions that were sent in the tute. I think if you do all the questions in the tute, it's more than enough to cover up all the MCQs, right? So you can easily get the 40 marks in the MCQs if you have, done all the questions in the tute. Right. Okay. So I'll be doing grade 10 history today, and tomorrow will be grade 11. So I thought of covering the 7 and 8 lessons today because I feel like that's somewhat important as well as difficult to understand because now if we take the seventh lesson, it starts with the kingdom. So starting from Dambadeniya to Kote, and it's sort of difficult to remember the orders, right? Of the kings and everything. So I thought of maybe doing that as well as the Candian kingdom. Okay, so let's start. Right. Okay. So first, you'll be starting with the decline of ancient cities. So decline of ancient cities in the dry zone, as well as the origin of new kingdoms in the southwest. Right. So you all must have done this lesson, already in school. So I'll be quick. Right. So now, when we talk about starting of a settlement or beginning of a city, okay, it's not like So when you say beginning of a city, suddenly you don't expect these moats and walls and all these marketplaces and temples and kingdoms. No, it's not like that. Okay, it doesn't happen suddenly. So basically, when they meant a city in the ancient times, what they mean is they had a population that was large enough to establish a city. Okay, because if you have a small group of people, we call that as a village, right? So if you need a particular amount of people in order to call it a city, right? So that's what they mean by that. So we talk about how agriculture as well as animal husbandry was their main livelihood. And then we go on to, yeah, then we also talk about these natural disasters that have occurred. Okay, like these droughts, floods. So if these things wouldn't have occurred, if these things wouldn't have happened, these farmers, and then they would have been leading a, what's wrong? Sorry about that network issue. Okay, right. So they had a lifestyle, okay, that was mainly animal husbandry and agriculture, right? And they did trade as well. So if it weren't for these droughts and floods, they would have led like a happy lifestyle. Right. Then we move on to whatever that was mentioned in the Jatakatta Katha. Okay, so there what they have mentioned is that um, there was this village head, right? So basically, Parumaka. Okay, so what they did was when there was this poor villager who didn't have enough harvest for that particular season, he would borrow a bag of paddy from the village head, okay, or they also call him Parumaka or Butter in these inscriptions, and promising him that he would return it the following year. So this shows us that these village heads, okay, they had some sort of a power. Okay, so they were actually wealthy enough, rich enough to help the others in the villages. So like that we see the origin of a power, right? Okay. Then we talk about first urbanization, right? So gradually, so I think you would have learned in the previous lesson how this, the origin of power, right? How they went from having these village heads to the king and stuff like that. So eventually, cities were established. So that's where the first urbanization began, right? So back in 450 BC, right? So there was this social stratification, right? So the society was categorized into different like stratas, like sections, okay, like in a hierarchy. Okay, so we begin with the Parumakas again. So Parumakas they were the one who were like having this power during that time. So what they did was, in order to maintain their power as well as to keep, to showcase their prestige and all of that, they imported beads as well as earthenware, okay, from other countries, and they, wore them. So a good example is, Ibankato burial ground, about this necklace that was worn by Parumaka. So they actually use these kind of things to show people that, they were prestigious and, they had the power to do all these things. Okay. So examples you can take, that is the excavations done in Anuradhapura, Tissa Maharamaya. Okay, so all of those things, right? So then when we talk about a first proper city, right? The first proper city that was established in Sri Lanka, it was during the Anuradhapura kingdom by King Pandukabhya. So it's beautifully explained in Mahavamsa as to how he planned the city and established it. So you can see it in, I think, page 93. There's like a sketch of the Polnaruwa kingdom, and you can see how he had planned the city back then, right? So the city of Anuradhapura is actually it remained the capital for almost 1,400 years. Okay, why? It's because of its, the economic strength that they had. So they had a self-sufficient economy, right? So they had animal husbandry, paddy cultivation, all of that. Additional to that, they also had other industries like iron industries as well. So if you look at the Magama city, okay, the Magama city is an example. So it's basically like a mirror that reflects the culture of that province. Okay, right. Then like after 6th century AD, how the trade during 6th century AD, right, the trade was mostly done by Arabs. So it was mainly in the western part of the country, right? So from 9th century AD onwards, right, the trade, it all shift to the eastern part of the country. So, which is why King Vijayabahu I, okay, he decided to make Polonnaruwa as his capital. So, if we make Polonnaruwa the capital, now it will be easy for him to, deal with all these trade relations and all of that through the Trincomalee harbor, right? Okay. Okay, then we speak about how the kings, okay, how they married from other countries, right, in order to maintain, the political stability, trade relations, many reasons, right? So mostly they married women from Burma as well as Cambodia. So which is why if you look at these buildings that was constructed during the Polonnaruwa era, you can see like, a mix of that culture, like a little bit of their style, their design that has been incorporated into all these buildings, right? So they've given some examples in your book, like the Buddha statues, for example, in Polonnaruwa Galviharaya, as well as yeah, which is also known as Polonnaruwa Satmahal Prasad. So, if you have seen the Buddha statues in those countries, like Burma and Cambodia, they have like sort of like a cone sort of thing, on the head. So those kinds of, so usually if you look at the statues that we have in here, we don't have that type of a design. But if you look at the statues in these places, like Polonnaruwa Galvihara, you can see similar statues, right? So that's how we know that some of their designs have been incorporated here. Okay, then that's about first urbanization. So if you all have to if you want to know deeper things into this, I mean, there's nothing deeper, you just have to know the examples, like the Buddha statues in Polonnaruwa Galviharaya. So you should know to write that. That's it. Okay. Next, going on to the downfall of Polonnaruwa kingdom. Right. So right after Anuradhapura kingdom, the last king of Anuradhapura was King Mihindu V. So right after King Mihindu V, King Vijayabahu became the king, right? And he made Polonnaruwa as his capital. So mainly it was because of the trade relations. So if you, I think this is in lesson number 3. Under King Vijayabahu I, it's explained as to why he made Polonnaruwa his, you know, ruling center, and also there was a Chola invasion at that time, so he had to, he had to suppress all that, and he decided to make Polonnaruwa his ruling center. So when we talk about Polonnaruwa kingdom, we speak about three strong kings, right? Three amazing kings. So the first one is King Vijayabahu I, okay, who established the Polonnaruwa kingdom. And then we speak about King Parakramabahu I, and then we speak about King Nishankamalla. So these were like the three strong kings, right, who had been ruling that time. Okay, so um, now, right after King Vijayabahu I, the country was again reunited. It was ruled by King Parakramabahu I, right? So now, right after the death of Parakramabahu I, there was like sort of a, like a political clash, political turmoil, right? So right after that, almost 12 rulers, they came into power during that time. So, from the end of King Parakramabahu's one ruling all the way to the downfall of Polonnaruwa, it was a span of 29 years. So within that time period, around 12 rulers came into power. So you can see how weak, the power was, how weak the political system was, right? So out of these people, right, one of them was a very strong ruler, that was King Nishankamalla, who ruled for 9 years. Okay. So now, if you look at the downfall of Polonnaruwa, there were four reasons, right? Weak rulers coming into power, as well as power struggle between the Pandyan and the Kalinga clans, then economic deterioration and invasion of Kalinga Malla. Right. So now, first let's talk about the weak rulers coming to power thing, right? So now, yeah, so I spoke about how within a span of 29 years, okay, almost 12 rulers came into power. Out of them, only King Nishanka Malla had ruled for 9 years. Right, so that was another reason, because now when you don't have strong rulers, you wouldn't have strong political stability, right? Which means automatically it caused the decline of the Polonnaruwa kingdom, right? Then we see a power struggle between the Pandyans and the Kalingas, right? So we have the Pandyans and we have the Kalingas. Now King Parakramabahu I, he belonged to the Pandyans. So King Parakramabahu I, he was a part of Kalingas. And King Nishankamalla King Pakrabahu I was a Pandyan and King Nishankamalla was a Kalinga. I'm just writing this in short form, not the whole name. Right. So now what happened was, after the death of King Nishankamalla, the Pandyans, they tried to bring the Pandyan leaders, rulers into power, while the Kalingas tried to bring their people, right? So therefore there was a power struggle. So if you look at King Parakramabahu I, right? His wife Queen Leelavati, she was brought to power thrice. She was brought to power thrice. Now, when it comes to the Kalingas, his brother Sahasramalla was brought to power. And his nephew was also brought into power, who was Chodanga, and they brought his wife also to power, who was Queen Kalyanavati. So you can see the power struggle, right? So Queen Lilavati had come thrice, and his brother, nephew, even his wife had tried to come into power, right? So there was a problem there. And since these people were not united, obviously, there is no political stability. So similarly, next is economic deterioration. So obviously, when the rulers are going to be fighting for power, no one's going to care about the economy, right? So because of that, whatever the economic relation they had that time, basically trade, as well as agriculture, it completely declined. So therefore, there was no economy, right? And then one of the main reasons is the invasion of Kalinga Maga. So they invaded, they captured Polonnaruwa kingdom, and this made all the people to fled to other areas like Ruhuna and these Udarat areas, and these kind of places it fell into wilderness. Okay, so all the people had left Polonnaruwa kingdom because of this invasion. So that was another major reason. So these are some points that's mentioned in the book, right? Reasons for the decline of the ancient cities. So invasion of the enemy, lack of security, migration of people to other countries, paralysis of trade and transport affairs, as well as downfall of the central ruling. So when the central ruling is no longer there, okay, obviously, uh, you know, there's no point in people staying there. So they all fled to other areas in order to save themselves. Okay, now we see the beginning of the second urbanization. Okay. Right. Now, when we talk about second urbanization, right? So, if you look at the cities or these palaces or whatever was constructed during the second urbanization, these structures were quite small compared to the first urbanization. Basically, compared to the structures constructed in Anuradhapura and Polonnaruwa eras, these structures were quite small, right? As well as, you can see a shift in economy as well. How, because when in mostly Polonnaruwa and Anuradhapura belong to the dry zone, right? So mostly they engaged in paddy cultivation. But when they moved on to these areas, like the Dambadeniya, Gampol areas, they relied on Chena cultivation. So many things changed during second urbanization, right? So the stuff that's given in the book is that growth of new harbors, operating several ruling centers due to decentralization of political power, reflecting a new intelligence awakening due to rebirth of literature. So mostly, if you have done, basically in Sinhala literature, if you look at all these kavyas, the examples in which periods they are written in, mostly you would see Gampole, Kote, and Damadeniya, those kind of eras. Okay, that's when literature, was flourishing. And yes, we see new harbors as well as decentralization of the political power. So all these while we had a centralized ruling system, like everyone were under the king and the king was ruling and all of that. But now we see a break in this, right? Now we have like rulers in different areas. So we had during Kote period there were different kingdoms as well. Additional to that, there were other kingdoms as well. Like that, we see a decentralized power. Okay, so starting from before that, this is how we were taught to remember the order of kingdom, right? So Anuradhapura, Polonnaruwa, Yapahua, Kurunagala, Gampola, Kote. So I'm not quite sure about the words, but this is what we were taught. Ane podda Dambadeni Anna Kude Ganiko, right? So we just so when you memorize this, you don't actually have to know the order of the kingdom. So automatically it will stick to your brain. So if you want to have like a screenshot or something, I think it's better if you know study this, because that's easy to remember. Right. So moving on to Dambadeniya, that was the first kingdom that was established after the downfall of Polonnaruwa kingdom, right? So during that time, these Polonnaruwa area, so it was caught by Kalingamaga, so it was captured in 1215 AD. Okay, so since then, the Dambadini was established in 1232 AD by King Vijayabahu III. Now, what happened is back then there were local, these local leaders who had constructed inaccessible places, right? So that where the enemies cannot reach. So the examples are given on the screen. So you can see Subasenavi, he constructed one in Yapahua Rock. Sankasenavi built a citadel in Gandenia, and Duke Bhuvanikabahu, he constructed a citadel at Govinda Malaya mountain, right? So now, even though these people did, even though these local leaders had constructed all these places, they were not strong enough, like they were not brave enough to, centralize this power, come forward and defeat the enemies and do all those things, right? So there was one person, uh, King Vijay Bahutri. So he was a Vanni Nayaka. Okay, so later we'll be studying what these Vanni people are, right? What is Vanni areas and Vanni Nayaka, what they all mean. So Vanni Nayaka basically means like a provincial leader. So right after the downfall of the central power, in these Ruhone areas, they started these small, decentralized ruling centers called as the Vanni area. So these Vanni Nayakas were leaders of those areas. So King Vijaybahu III was one such king. Okay, so he was a Vanni Nayaka, and what he did was he made Dambadeniya his ruling center, right? Okay. Um. Then So King Vijaybahu III, now he had, he dispelled all the enemies from Mayaratta. Okay, so he made Dambadini his ruling center. So in order to become a Sri Lankan king, you need to have the tooth relic as well as the bowl relic. Okay, so those two are the most important things. So if you possess them, then yes, you are Sri Lankan king according to the ancient times, right? So therefore, back then, due to all these, disputes in the country, okay, this truth relic and bold relic, it was protected by the bhikkhus in Kotmale. Now, King Vijay Bahutri, you got to know about this. He took both of them. He constructed a Dalada Maligaon in Beligala, and he deposited the truth relic as well as the bold relic there. Now he was basically the king, okay, the legal king. Okay, he had the legal rights, and now he was the king. So now, I have, you can see the services that he had done. It's on the presentation. So he rewrote books in disuse. He held the Upasampada festival again. He reconstructed Kelni temple, and he also constructed the Dambadeniya Vijaya Sundara Ramaya. Right now, King Vijayabahu III, okay, he had two sons called Prince Parakramabahu as well as Prince Bhuvanakabahu. So after him, his oldest son, King Parakramabahu, Prince Parakramabahu became the king as King Parakramabahu II. Right. So now we all know about King Parakramabahu too. Okay, he was a very smart person. Okay, he had that name, Kalikala Sahitya Sarvagna Pandit as well, and so he was taught by the bhikkhus who were led by Sangarakitta Tero. So he was a very intelligent king. Okay, so if you look at the literature, if we go to the literature section, okay, of this lesson, you can see the number of books that was written during this period. It's a lot compared to other periods. During Dambadani period, there were like a lot of books written, and even Kausilumina was written by King Parkanabahu too, right? So even when King Parkanabahu became the king, he had several challenges. Okay, so now his main target was to chase away this Kalinga Maga from the country. Okay, he didn't want them; he just wanted them gone. Now, when he was getting ready to like attack this army, there was a foreign invader. Okay, a foreign Javaka invader called Chandrabanu. So this was during his 11th year of ruling, right? So this Chandrabanu came, and then the king who was about to chase Kalinga Maga, he had to divert his attention to this person and attacked him. So he didn't actually kill Chandrabanu, he just attacked him and he fled, right? So after that, King Parakramabahu II, he tactfully, chased the Kalingamag out of the country by 1255 AD. And now this foreign invader called Chandrabanu, he comes again. Now initially he came during the 11th year of King Parakramabahu II's ruling, right? Now he comes again in 1261 AD, and he comes with the help, he comes with some mercenary Indian soldiers to like, attack and stuff. And he comes to Yapahua. Now he asks the king to, hand over the city and stuff. Now the king doesn't do that, obviously. He gets the help from the Pandyans and he defeats this invader. Okay, so this time he kills Chandrabanu. And afterwards, the king, he took steps to develop the economy, religious as well as educational sectors with the help of Devapati Raja. So he was one of his ministers. Right. So now, King Parakramabahu is a very strong king because now if you look at Kalinga Mag, they had now stayed in the country for like almost 40 years, and he was the king who could like completely chase them away from the country. Okay, then we will talk about Yapahua kingdom. Right now, right after the death of King Parakramabahu II, his son Bosat Vijayabahu becomes the king. So you can call him as Bosat Vijayabahu, or you can even call him as Vijayabahu the fourth, right? So now King Vijayabahu, he actually dies in 2 years, right, due to a military coup. Now after the death of King Vijayabahu, his brother Buanekabahu I becomes the king, right? So let me repeat that again. Now King Vijayabahu III, right? He had let me write that. Okay. So King Vijayabahu III had two sons. Okay. The first one was Prince Parakramabahu. And the second one was Prince Bhuvanekabahu. So this Bhuvanekabahu, he was just a prince, right? Not a king. So right after that, right after the death of King Vijayabahu III, his son, the eldest son Parakramabahu, he became the king as Parakramabahu II. Okay. Now, right after, now this, he's a prince, right? So he remains a prince. Now, right after the death of King Parakramabahu II, his son, Prince Vijayabahu, becomes the king. So he's Vijayabahu the fourth. Right. Now, after his death, so he dies in 2 years, okay, due to a military coup. And after his death, his brother becomes the king as Bhuvanekabahu I. Okay. Right. This is what happened. So now it's not confusing. So this person, he just remains a prince, all right? He remains a prince, and his brother becomes the king as King Bhuvanekabahu I. All right. So now, even during this time, now King Bhuvanekabahu I had he also faced a lot of issues. Okay, so there was this invasion from an army general called Kalingarayar, and there was another platoon led by another army general called Chodanga. So he had to face all these issues. Okay, so what he did was he spent a few years in Dambadeniya and he decided to make Yapahua his main ruling center. So the person who made Yapahua the main ruling center was King Bhuvanekabahu I. So King Bhuvanekabahu I, he was also interested in having trade relations with the foreign country. So he had sent some ambassadors to Egypt, right? And they were welcomed in Cairo. But then what happened was he couldn't continue this because by the time they came back, King Bhuvanekabahu had passed away, right? Okay. Now Now begins a big issue, right? Now, after the death of King Bahu, okay, now there was a fight between Prince Parakramabahu as well as Prince Bahu too, right? So now this is gonna keep on expanding. Okay. Now, King Vijayabahu IV, his son was called again Prince Parakramabahu, the fourth. And King Bhuvanekabahu's son was called King Bhuvanekabahu II. Serious that. Okay. So now there was a dispute between them as to who's going to become the king, right, for kingship. So during that time, uh, there was a South Indian army general, right? He was a Pandyan army general called Arya Chakravarti. So he arrived to the country, he attacked the Yapahua citadel, and he took the truth relic back to South India and he gave it to King Kulashekara. So back then, the South Indian ruler was King Kulashekara, and this Arya Chakravarti, he took it and he gave to King Kulashekara, who was the king of India, right? So now what happened was the son of oh wait, sorry, I made a mistake. This is Parakram Bahu 3, right? Okay, so the son of Prince Vijay Bahu 4 is Parakram Bahu 3 and Bhuvaneka Bahu 1 is Bhuvaneka Bahu 2, right? Now, King Parakram Bahu 3, right? So he went to India, okay, he discussed with the king and he took the tooth relic back and he came back and he started ruling as King Parakram Bahu 3 in Polonnaruwa. Now, Prince Bhuvaneka Bahu, right? So he went, he met them, he bought the tooth relic and he started ruling the Polonnaruwa kingdom. Now, King Bhuvanekabahu too, he went to Polonnaruwa, he defeated the king. Okay, so he defeated the king, he took the tooth relic and he became the king, making Kurunagala his capital. Right? So King Bhuvanekabahu too made Kurunagala his capital and he continued ruling Kurunagala for 9 years. All right. So now, after the death of King Bhuvanekabahu II, his son Prince Parakramabahu became the king as Parakramabahu the fourth. Okay, so right, let's do a short recap. King Vijaybahu III had two sons, Parakramabahu and Bhuvanekabahu. Out of that, his first son, King Parakramabahu, became the king as King Parakramabahu II. So King Parakramabahu II had a son, had two sons again, Vijayabahu the fourth, right? As well as Bhuvanekabahu. So right after the death of Vijayabahu fourth in 2 years, his brother Bhuvanekabahu I became the king. Now, what happened was, after the death of King Bhuvanekabahu I, there was a power struggle between Parakramabahu III, who is the son of King Vijayabahu IV, as well as Bhuvanekabahu II, who is the son of Bhuvanekabahu I. Now, after this fight, so there was a power struggle. So then we speak about this Indian army general called Arya Chakravarti. So he was from the Pandyan clan, right? So he arrived, he took the tooth relic, he went back to India, gave it to King Kulashekara. So King Parakramabahu III went to India, spoke to King Kulashekara, brought it back, and he made Polonnaruwa his ruling center and became the king. So King Bhuvanekabahu II, right, who is his cousin, so he went back to Polonnaruwa, defeated the king, brought the tooth relic. He made Kurunagala his ruling center, and he ruled for 9 years. So right after his death, his son Prince Parakramabahu, his son became the king as King Parakramabahu IV. Right. So it's also mentioned in Tamil poetry, Sarajoti Malay, that he became the king in 1302 AD. So just remember the name of it, okay? Sarajoti Malay. So it's about King Parakramabahu IV. All right. So during this era, the main things that occurred was writing the Jatakatta storybook, right? Which was in Pali language. It was written in Sinhala, right? And also there were other textbooks like Dalada Sirita, Sinhala Bodhivamsa, Anagata Vamsa, Dalada Pujavaliya. Those kind of books were written during this time. And there is also folklore that says that King Bonekabahu III had constructed Kurunagala tank. Okay, so it has been mentioned that right after King Parakramabahu IV, King Bonekabahu III became the king, or we can call him as Vanni Bonekabahu, and then King Vijayabahu V became the king. Right. So let's see that as well. So right after King Parakramabahu the fourth, right after King Parakramabahu the fourth, it was King Bhuvanekabahu III. I'm gonna write this in short form. Right. So we can call him as Bhuvanekabahu the III, or we can call him as Vanni Bhuvanekabahu as well. So Bhuvanekabahu the third or Vanni Bhuvanekabahu, and this king he had constructed Kurunagala tank. So right after King Bhuvanekabahu III, it was King Vijayabahu V who became the king, or we can call him as Savulu Vijayabahu. King Vijayabahu V or Savulu Vijayabahu. So that's how the order goes. Okay, right. So now you can see there's like a continuous change. Okay, so this is starting from King Vijayabahu III, and still his generation is ruling. So you can see his grandkids. Okay, they are the ones who are still in rule. We have no new people, right? So it's still the family line that's continuing. Okay, now we are going to be moving on to Gampole Kingdom. Now, Gampala kingdom was established by King Bhuvanekabahu the fourth. Okay, so we believe that King Bhuvanekabahu IV was the son of King Vijayabahu V or Savulu Vijayabahu. So right after him, it was his son Bhuvanekabahu the fourth. So it's still continuing the bloodline. Okay, so King Bhuvanekabahu the fourth, and he established the the Gampola kingdom. Right. So now he established the Gampola kingdom. So Gampola kingdom, it gets a little complicated now when we come to Gampola kingdom, right? So now, during the Gampola period, okay, King Bhuvanekabahu was ruling the kingdom. So while he was ruling Gampola, similarly, like contemporary to that, he had a brother, okay, and he was ruling the Dedigam area as King Parakramabahu V. Now he was ruling Gampola, and his brother King Parakramabahu V, the five, he was ruling Dedigama. Right, okay. So now, King Bhuvanekabahu the fourth, he had also constructed Lanka Tilaka image house as well as Gadala Deni temple. So he had done some services, right? Construction of Lanka Tilaka and Gadala Deni temple. Now, so you can also say that now there were like four kingdoms, right? Now King Bhuvanekabahu 4th, when he was ruling Gampola, his brother King Parakramabahu V was ruling Dedigama. Now, additional to that, there were also another two kingdoms. Okay, one kingdom was in Jaffna, and there was another kingdom in Raigama. One in Jaffna, and there was another one in Raigama. Right. So the Jaffna kingdoms, it was ruled by the Arya Chakravartis, and the Raigam area was ruled by the Alakeshwara lineage. So this was ruled by Arya Chakravarti. Right. Okay, so now there are four kingdoms. Okay, so we have King Bhuvanekabahu IV ruling Gampola, his brother King Parakramabahu V ruling Dedigama, and Jaffna being ruled by the Arya Chakravartis, as well as Raigama being ruled by the Alakeshwara lineage. So one of the special characteristics that you can see during this Gampola period was the presence of two respectable families. Okay, so one of the family was the Alakeshwara family. Okay, so yes, Alakeshwara family, the Alakeshwara lineage were ruling Raigam, as well as their family was an important family. Okay, they were respectable families, right? So Alakeshwara family was ruling Raigama, as well as we had the Senadi Lankara Senavirat family in Gampola, right? So these were two respectable families. Now, the Senadi Lankara Senavirat family, who were in Gampola, there was this special person who belonged to that family. Okay, so he was Senadi Lankara Senavi Dedigama. That was his name. So, Senadi Lankara Senavi Dedigama, he had married the sister of King Parakramabahu III. So, I hope you all can recall when I say King Parakramabahu III. Can anyone tell me who he was? Can anyone tell me where he was ruling, which kingdom he was ruling? Yes, can anyone answer me? Hello? Hello, can you all hear me? Okay, then can someone answer me? Which kingdom was King Parakramabahu III ruling? Who was he? You can type it through chat, no problem. Or you can text me personally. Okay, no one. All right, fine. So King Parakramabahu III, if you remember, I told you there was a dispute between two princes, right? So King Parakramabahu III, he was the son of King Vijayabahu IV, right? Bosat Vijayabahu, and he's the one who went, spoke to King Kulakeshara, bought the tooth relic back, and made Polanarva his kingdom, right? So now him, right? His sister got married to this Senadi Lankara Senavi Dedigama. Okay, so they had a son called King Vikramabahu, who later became the king of Gampola as King Vikramabahu III. Okay. Now, if you look at Gampola period, right? Okay, and also when it comes to the allocation, I forgot to tell this. So when it comes to the allocation for the family, right, in Raigama, the important person who belonged to that family was Nishanka Alakeshwara. Okay, so he was important chieftain. So Nishanka Alakeshwara belonged to that, right? Now, when you look at Gampola period, usually we see the uh, the a father central system, right? How the kingship is passed. So usually it's given from father to son or from brother to brother. Okay, that's how the kingship goes. But in Gampola period, we see a mother central system. So it was given from uncle to nephew or son of a sister of the ex king, something like that, right? So it was the mother central system. So now, one of the important incidents that took place during Gampala period was the arrival of Ibn Battuta. Okay, so Ibn Battuta, he arrived in the period of 1344 AD. So he arrived to Sri Lanka in 1344 AD in order to visit the Adam's Peak, and it was the Arya Chakravarti, okay, from Jaffna, who actually assisted him in reaching the place and seeing Adam's Peak and everything. So he had mentioned in his records that this Allah Konnar, so Allah Konnar was a person who belonged to this Arya Chakravarti family, that he used to possess a white elephant. So white elephant means it's sort of like a grayish colored elephant, not like a white elephant, right? Okay. So now, this is another incident that took place during Gampara period. Okay. Now, King Vikramabahu III was now the king of Gampara. So who was Vikramabahu III? He was the son of the sister of King Parakramabahu III, as well as Senadi Lankara Senavi Dedigama, who belonged to the Senadi Lankara Senavirat family in Gampura, right? So he became the king as King Vikramabahu III. So during his time, the Arya Chakravarti. So Arya Chakravartis were ruling Jaffna. So this Arya Chakravarti, he sent tax officers from Jaffna to come and collect tax from the Gampal area. So he's sort of like, trying to show that he's the one in power and, he has more power than them sort of thing. So now, Nishanka Alakeshwara, who belonged to the Raigama family, okay, who was, so Alakeshwara lineage, right? So what he did was he constructed a fort in Kote in order to punish these tax officers. So now there was a dispute between the Arya Chakravartis and the Gampala kingdom. So Arya Chakravartis, they invaded Gampala kingdom and they were defeated by this officer Nishanka Alakeshwara, right? So now, during the latter part of Gampala period, we also speak about a Chinese invasion, right? So first we spoke about an invasion from Arya Chakravartis, like a threat from them, and now we see a threat from the Chinese. So now there was a Chinese general named Chen Ho. He was sent by the then Chinese Emperor Yunglo. Okay, so the general Chen Ho came to Sri Lanka. He came to Sri Lanka in 1405, 1409, as well as 1411. So this was the last year he arrived. So General Chenho, he had come with offerings, okay, and Veera Alakeshwara, right? Veera Alakeshwara, who was from this Raigama family, okay, he did not welcome Chenho properly, right? So because of that, what he did was whatever the things he had brought from China, he had given it to the Devundara Devala. So if you go to the Kalamu Museum, you can see this particular thing called the trilingual inscription. So we call it as the trilingual letter of God. So whatever he had brought, he had given the offering to the Devundara Devala, and he had left after writing an inscription that is basically the trilingual letter in three languages. So that was written in Chinese, Persian, as well as Tamil languages. So what happened was he came back. Chenho came back to this country in 1411 again with a big army. He fought Alakeshwara, captured him along with some other prisoners, right? So yes, that's it under Gampala Kingdom, right? Then we are going to be talking about Kota Kingdom. Now, right. Okay. Now, when it comes to Kote kingdom, even though King Nishanka Alakeshwar, even though he had constructed a fortress in Kote, right, while he was still the Gampali period was going on, this Kote kingdom was actually established by King Parakramabahu the sixth. So now King Parakramabahu the sixth was also a strong ruler, right? So basically, all the Parakramabahus were very, strong rulers. So let's go to Kota Kingdom now. Right. So now this kingdom was established by King Parakramabahu the fourth. Sorry, Parakramabahu the sixth. Right. So now, King Parakramabahu, he had to live under, he had to live hidden away. Okay, so he wasn't, because there was a lot of problems in the country back then. Okay, so there were several adversaries, fights. Okay, so during the last part of Gampala Kingdom, we also spoke about this invasion, Chinese invasion, all of that, right? So there were a lot of disputes. So King Parakramabahu the sixth, he had to live under hiding, right? So his father was Jaya Mahalena and his mother was Sunetra Devi. Okay, so his father, Jaya Mahalena, and his mother was Sunetra Devi. Right. So now, Vida Gamatero was the one who actually provided protection for him. So he was living under Vida Gamatero. So now in 1415, right, he came to Kotte and he uh, held his coronation there, right? So he became the king of Kota Kingdom in 1415. Okay, so he had ruled the country up to 1467. So he became the king of Kota Kingdom in 1450, right? So King Parakramabahu the sixth established Kota Kingdom. Father was Jaya Mahalena, mother was Sunetra Devi, right? So he became the king in 1450. Now during that time, he also did great services towards the kingdom. Okay, so let's see what that is. Number one, he brought all these Vanni areas under the Kota kingdom. So you can see these points on page 102. So initially I mentioned how Vanni areas were these, several uh, provincial ruling centers. They had separated into several, small areas with low population, and they started their ruling. It was controlled by Parumaka. They were ruling this Vanni Nayaka, right? So he brought all these Vanni areas under Kota kingdom, and he also brought Jaffna under Kota kingdom by sending Prince Sapumal. Okay, so there was a prince called Prince Sapumal, and he sent him to Jaffna, with an army to bring that area under Jaffna. And Prince Sapumal, he continued ruling Jaffna after that, right? And then there was also this rebellion raised by a provincial leader called Count Jyotir. So again, he was from the Udaratta, and again, his rebellion was suppressed because obviously, right, when you start, taking the area that belonged to a particular person. So basically, Count Jyotir, he was ruling Udaratta. So when you want to take his area under the ruling, so he started this rebellion, and yes, it was successfully suppressed. Then he united the Kota kingdom, okay, in order to make the country prosperous. Okay, so he had to, build the economy, build the religion, all of those things. So he united the country in order to develop it. And also there was a great contribution towards literature during this time. So Kota kingdom was known as the golden age of literature, of Sinhala literature, right? The golden age of Sinhala literature. So the Sinhala literature, it flourished mainly during this Kota kingdom, right? Now, after King Parakramabahu the sixth death, now King Parakramabahu the sixth passed away, right? So now after his death, his grandson became the king as King Jayabahu, right? So let's do that here. So I'll just write King P6, okay? Because I can't write the entire name, it's time consuming, right? Now King Parakramabahu the sixth died, and after that, his grandson became the king. as King Jayabahu. Okay, now King Jayabahu, he was the son of Parakramabahu VI's daughter, Ulakudaya Devi, right? Ulakudaya Devi's son, King Jayabahu, he became the king. Now, you all remember Prince Sapumal, right? Prince Sapumal was sent to rule the Jaffna kingdom. Now, Prince Sapumal comes back. Okay, so now Prince Sapumal, he comes back and he kills King Jayabahu, right? He kills him and he becomes the king as King Bhuvanekabahu the sixth. Right. So now you can see King Parakramabahu the sixth. Okay. His grandson became the king as King Jayabahu. So Prince Sapumal, who was in charge of ruling the Jaffna kingdom, so he was the person who helped to, win Jaffna as well. So he came back, killed King Jayabahu, became the king as King Bhuvanekabahu the sixth. Right. So now during King Bhuvanekabahu the sixth time, okay, there was this riot, okay, that was started by a Sinhala Sangha, or we call this as Pasiyodun Rata Sinhala Peraliya. So it was this rebellion was started again. This rebellion was suppressed by another prince called Prince Ambulagala. Okay, so there was another prince now, suppressed by Prince Ambulagala, which was under the guidance of King Bhuvanekabahu. So now leaders such as Kekulandala Sirivardhana Patiraja was forgiven, right? He was one of the rebel leaders. He was forgiven, and this is going to be mentioned, and this is mentioned in the Dedigama inscription, right? So it has been mentioned in the Dedigama inscription that a local leader called Kekulandala Sirivardhana Patiraju was forgiven, and this rebel was suppressed by Prince Ambulagala. Okay, so now after the demise of King Bhuvanekabahu the sixth, okay, now King Bhuvanekabahu the sixth also dies. Look at another color. Okay. So now King Bhuvanekabahu the sixth dies, and after the right. So after the death of King Bhuvanekabahu the sixth, his son Prince Parakramabahu the seventh becomes the king. Okay. Now after his death, his son. Now again I'm going to write P, right? Instead of writing Parakramabahu, seven became the king. Now what happens? Prince Ambulagala, who was in charge of ruling Satara Koralaya. Okay. So Prince Ambulagala, who was in charge of ruling Satara Korala area, he came back. He dethroned King Parakramabahu the seventh. He dethroned him. Dethroned him, and he became the king as King Parakramabahu the eighth. Or we can also call him as Veera Parakramabahu. Right? So that is the entire story. So it is also believed that Portuguese, now he became the king in 1490. Okay. And the Portuguese came to our country in 1505. Okay. So let's do a quick recap with the kingdom. Right. So Kota Kingdom was established by King Parakramabahu the sixth. Right? It was established by King Parakramabahu the sixth. His mother was his father was Jayamahalena and mother was Sunetra Devi. Now, during King Parakramabahu the sixth time, he had a daughter called Ulakudaya Devi. Right? So during his rule, he sent Prince Sapumal, okay, to Jaffna in order to win Jaffna and rule that area. So right after his death, his grandson King Jayabahu became the king. So if Prince Sapumal, who was ruling the Jaffna area, he came back and he to Kotte, he killed King Jayabahu and he became the king as King Bhuvanekabahu the sixth. So during his time, there was a rebel, and we speak about that is mentioned in the Dedigama inscription. So right after the death of King Bhuvanekabahu the sixth, his son becomes the king as King Parakramabahu the seventh. So during his time, there was another prince called Prince Ambalagar. So see, so like what he did, okay, what he did to King Parakramabahu the sixth, the same thing is happening to him. The same thing is happening to his son, right? So Prince Ambulagala, who was in charge of ruling Satara Korale, he comes back, dethrones King Parakramabahu the seventh, and he becomes the king as King Parakramabahu the eighth, right? Okay. So now, next part is about Jaffna as well as the Vaniyas. Okay. Now we'll talk about Jaffna Kingdom, right? So Jaffna Kingdom was founded by Vijay Kulankei Arya Chakravarti. So we know that Jaffna Kingdom was so mainly now this happened after the downfall of the Rajarata civilization. So after the downfall of the central power is when all of these things started, right? So then Jaffna Kingdom was established. Okay, it was founded by Vijay Kulankai Arya Chakravarti. So you can also see in the books such as Yalpana Vaipa Malay, they have been this has been mentioned, and additional to that, there are other Tamil texts such as Kailai Malay and Shegarasa Shekara Malay as well. So Yalpana Vaipava Malay, that's an important book, right? Yalpana Vaipava Malay. So that book, it mentions about 12 rulers. So you have Kulakeshwara, Vikirama, Varodaya, Martanda, such rulers, and they were all from the Arya Chakravarti lineage. So far, what you have to know about this Jaffna kingdom is mainly what we have come through so far, what we have studied so far. So, during the Gampala king era, like Gampala kingdom, we spoke about Ibn Battuta, right? He came to this country in 1344 AD, and how, Alakeshwara, Arya Chakravartis, right? So they had a strong ruling at the time. So how they helped Ibn Battuta to, come to Arabic speak and everything. And we also spoke about how Minister Nishank Alakeshwara, how he fought against the Arya Chakravarti, and how he punished the tax officers in by building a fortress in Kotte. Right, so we spoke about that, and also we spoke about how Jaffna Kingdom was brought completely under the ruling of Kotte Kingdom during the rule of King Parakramabahu the sixth. Right. So now, King Parakramabahu the sixth was the last strong king belonging to Kotte, right? So right after him, these people, they didn't the grip that they had on this particular kingdom, Jaffna kingdom, kind of loosened, right? So later it was under the Portuguese. So before that, their grip loosened. So then, you know, it was not mainly under the central kingdom anymore. So finally, lastly, it was, under the control of the Kotte kingdom. And right after that, it went into the hands of the Portuguese, right? Then we speak about the 1 years, right? So this is where the ruling units called 1 is going to be coming into play. So now, right after the downfall of Rajarata civilization, right? So right after the downfall of Polonnaruwa kingdom, in the lower population areas, these Vanni ruling centers emerged, right? So um, the provincial rulers who were ruling these Vanni areas, we call them as Vanniyars or Vanni Nayaka. So according to Pujavali, right? According to the literary text Pujavali, King Vijayabahu III, who became the king of Dambadaniya, was also a provincial ruler. He was a Vanni Nayaka. So according to, uh, sources, during the rule of King Parakramabahu the sixth. Now, King Parakramabahu the sixth was ruling Kotte Kingdom. So, during his time, there were 18 Vanni areas, right? 18 such Vanni areas. Now, these Vanniyars, right? That is, these Vanni Nayakas, they had mostly they had a chance to enjoy independence, and they had a chance to do this independent ruling when the central power was weak. Okay, because now when you don't have a strong king and when there is no political stability, obviously, they are not going to look into this Vani area. So therefore, these Vaniyas, the Vaninayakas, they had a sort of a independence. But under the rule of King Parakramabahu II of Dambadaniya kingdom and King Parakramabahu VI of the Kota kingdom, they were under a strong grip, right? They were mainly under the main kingdoms like Dambadani and Kotte. So during King Parakramabahu II and VI ruling, they were mainly under the main kingdom. So when it comes to Kandyan kingdom, still these one areas were existing, but they were under the Kandyan king. Right. Now let's move on to the economic style. Okay, so what type of economy had existed all the way from Dambadaniya to Gampala kingdom? Okay, right. Okay, so I have typed this in point forms. So you can see. Mainly, it was agriculture, right? Agriculture, animal husbandry. So since this was not the dry zone, since it was the wet zone, mostly China cultivation was done. Okay, and also they exported items such as cinnamon, as well as a surplus of areca nuts, cardamom, nutmeg, and pepper. And additional to that, they also exported pearls, gems, tuskers, elephants, as well as their tusks. So we also maintained trade relations with India, Arabia, China, Persia, and Egypt. Okay, so international trade was mainly maintained by the king. Right. Okay. So then we can write these examples as well when they ask about the economic style that existed during this period. So these are points directly taken from the textbook, right? So archaeological evidences found in Dedigama reveal that there was a porcelain, again imported from China. And then old leaves of Kurnagala mentions about bazaars related to internal trade. So you can see there was internal trade as well. So we had external trade, international trade, as well as internal trade. And then again, Ibn Battuta, he had mentioned in his records that we had rich trading harbors in the western coast, right? Okay, so these are the things or the points that you can write if they ask about economic style that existed during the second urbanization. Okay, so these are types of things that you'll have to sit and study. Okay, so history is basically like a story. So if you're going to, if you're going to memorize history, that's going to be difficult. So you have to sit and try to study it like a story. Only then you can, learn it in a flow, right? Then we'll move on to religion. Okay. So yeah, again, kings from Dambadani to Kota period, they had, constructed many temples, devalas, and they had also taken steps to renovate the temples, devalas, and some kings even, they took steps to bring Upasampadava and all of those things to, flourish Buddhism again. So they believed in gods like Upulvan, Vibhishana, Skanda Kumara, and Sama. Right? So yeah, again you can see the reference in Sandesha Kavyas. And also we can see a Shiva Devala that was adjacent to Sri Jayavardhanapura in the 15th century. So that was constructed for Shiva devotees. And we have the Muneshwaram temple in Chilau, sacred place for Hindus, and also Islamic religious places, mostly in the coastal areas, because mostly Arabs, they came to Sri Lanka for trade. So mostly they settled in the coastal area. So we see these religious places mostly in the seaport areas, right? So that's all you have to know about religion. So if you just memorize these points, uh, it's easy for you to write the essay. All right. Now let's move on to the art and architecture that existed during this time. So this is this is like the most difficult part to study because there is like a lot of names that you have to remember. So it's better if you guys like could make a table, you know, like for example, right, separate it into Gampola, Dambadeniya, Kote, and you can categorize it like that, and you can, write all the Sandesha Kavyas and and all the monks and all the Pirivenas established and these educational centers. So you'll have to draw like a mind map or something, or maybe write a table. I think that's the only way you can easily study all this because that's what I did before my O level. So I had like this short notebook, like on the main things that I would forget. So this section was there, because these stuff you will actually right. So now, when we speak about arts and architecture, so one feature that we see in these periods, right? Right. Okay. So now let's start to talk about the arts as well as architecture. Right. Now, if you can see the steps in Yapahua Kingdom, okay, you can see that. So the steps in Yapaho Kingdom. Okay, so the creations of its posts and stuff. So you can see they have the Pandyan as well as the Cambodian influences. Now we also see a South Indian architectural styles in the idol houses that has been constructed. Okay, so you can see that there were devalas constructed connecting to these idol houses. So they constructed devala, and joining the Devala, you have an idol house also, a Pilimagaya. Okay, so this is an example of an idol house. So basically, it's like an image. It's very beautiful. So you have different idols, and people go there to worship, right? So this style of constructing devalas, connecting idol houses, is actually uh, an South Indian architecture style. Okay, so you can see this in Gadala Deniya temple as well. So you can also see this in Devala that was constructed for called Upulwan. You can also see it in the Lanka Tilaka Pilimagaya. So this is an example of Lanka Tilaka Pilimagaya, right? And also next we are going to be talking about Embek Devala. So such structure. So Embek Devala, it was constructed by King Vikramabahu III, right? Kurul Gampale period. And you can see the wooden posts. Okay, the wooden posts, they have beautiful carvings as well as the roof. Okay, so if you visit these places, you can see that, how beautiful these carvings are. So you should know that all these constructions were made without any modern equipments, right? So therefore, these are things that we have to be amazed about when we look at them, right? So then we are going to be moving on to the literature part, right? So now, King Parakramabahu II was a very learned king. Okay, he was very smart. He was known as Kalikala Sahitya Sarvagna Pandita, right? So during the Dampatini period, we see a lot of books, right? Many literary texts. So which is why I told you you have to categorize it and make a table or a mind map to study these things, because it's not, otherwise it's not going to stick to your head, because it's very difficult to keep all of these things in your mind, right? So Kausinamina was written by King Parakramabahu II. And also, there's another book called Kandavuru Sirita. So, Kandavuru Sirita is basically a book that describes the daily routine of King Parakramabahu II. Like, that he woke up, he did this, he did that, then he went to the garden and he enjoyed the birds, something like that. So, they have written like his daily routine, right? That is Kandavuru Sirita. And then Kausinamina, which was written by King Parakramabahu II himself. So Saddharma Ratnavaliya was written by Dharmasena Thero. Then Pujavaliya was written by Mayurapada Parivenadipati Buddha Putra Thero. Then Siddharth Sangarava, that is the Sinhala grammar. Then Elusandes Lakuna, Dambadeni Katikavaka, right? That consists of the disciplinary rules of monks. So then we have medical text, right, named Yoganvaya, written by Buddha Putra Thero. Then we have medical books like Bessajja Manjusa and Hatvangalla Viharavansaya, Thupavamsaya, right? And also we see Pali books, right? Pali books were also written during this time period. Okay. So additional to that, we also have Vishuddhi Marga Sannasa, Samanta Kutika Varnaya, Rasavahini, Sarasangrahaya. Okay. So all of these were written during the Dambadeniya period. Okay. Then we are going to be moving on to Kurunagala period. So in Kurunagala period, they had translated the Panchayapanas Jataka Pota into Sinhala. So originally it was written in Pali and it was translated to Sinhala. Then we have Dalada Sirita, Dalada Pujavaliya, then Sinhala Bodhivamsa. All of these were written during the period. And also sun writing. Okay, now we're going to be talking about Gampala period. So now we spoke about Dambadeniya. And then we spoke about Kurunagala period. Kurunagala period, the Panchayapanas Jatakapata was translated. Dalada Sirita, Dalada Pujavaliya, and Sinhala Bodhivamsa were written during this period. Then we are moving on to the Gampole period, right? So writing Sandesha Kavyas, okay, started in Gampole period. So far, according to history, right? We know three Sandeshas. That is Mayura, Tisara, Saranihini Sandesha. So this is, you would have studied this, come across this in lesson 1, the first unit, right? Mayura, Tisara, Saranihini Sandesha. So out of these three, Mayura and Tisara were written in Gampola period, right? So they were the oldest Sandesha Kavyas, Mayura and Tisara. So if there is a question saying what is the oldest Sandesha Kavyas, you should write Mayura Tisara, not Saranihini Sandesha, right? And also, there were Pali textbooks written during this time. That is Paramishatakaya, Jeena Bodhavali, Balavatra, and Saddharma Lankare were also written during this period. Right. This is during Gampola period. Then we are going to be moving on to Kote period. So similar to Dambadaniya period, even Kote period, there was a lot of advancement in literature, right? Sinhala literature. So mainly it's Dambadaniya and Kote. I mean, things did happen in Kurunagal and Gampola, but not as huge compared to these two periods. So in Kote period, King Parkrabao VI was a ruler, right? So he was a great ruler, right? And during this time, there was also a lot of, learned monks who had lived during that time. So we have Totagamuya Shri Rahula Tero, Keragala Vanaratana Tero, Irugal Tilaka Pirivana Tero. These were all the monks, right? So they also wrote books such as Perakumba Sirita, right? Kavya Shekaraya, Buduguna Alankaraya, Lovada Sangarava, Guttila Kavya. Okay, you all must know Guttila Kavya, written by Vattavai Thero, right? Hansa, Paravi, Giri, then Selnihini Sandesha, Kavyas, right, was written during this time. So Mayura Tisara was written during Gampala period. Selnihini Sandesha written during uh, Kotte period. So there were also other books like Bhakti Kavya, Shilo Kavya, Hatan Kavya, Prashasti Kavya, Upadesha Kavya, Kosha Grantha, right? And also they have mentioned one Sanskrit text, that is Bhakti Shatakaya. So Bhakti Shatakaya is the Sanskrit text that was written during the Kotte period. Then we are going to be talking about the Buddhist centers which was established during this time. So a number of Buddhist educational centers came into being during this time. So King Parakramabahu VI, right? He constructed the Pepiliane Sunetra Devi Pirivena in memory of his mother. So what is it? Pepiliane Sunetra Devi Pirivena. So earlier we learned that his mother's name was Sunetra Devi. So in her memory, King Parakramabahu VI constructed Peppiliane Surathadaya Pirivena. So additional to that, we also had Keragala Padmavati Pirivena, Devi Nuvara Irugal Tiraka Pirivena, then Vidagama Gunananda Pirivena, right? So all of these things, okay, it actually made the literature flourish, right? During the time of Kotte period, which is why we call it as the golden age of Sinhala literature. So yes, that's it. Unit 7 is done. So it's better if you guys could, like I mentioned, make a table and study all these things, all these books and stuff. And also when it comes to the kings, right, the kingdoms all the way from Dambadeniya to Kotte, it's better if you all could make like a chart and, by drawing arrows, like how I wrote, right, in a short note form, if you all could get all of this in one paper, then that will be so helpful. So before the exam, before going to the exam, you can just take a look at it and you'll have the entire story in your mind. So if you could make short notes like this, it'll be very useful, right? Like this. Okay, then uh let's go for a 15-minute break. Okay. So I'll be seeing you all again at 8:40. Right? We can take the break now. Okay, then we can start. Also, please be engaging when I ask questions, okay? I would like to hear your answer. Okay, let me ask the same question again. Who was King Parakramabahu III? May I know which kingdom he ruled? He actually ruled for a very short period of time. May I know the kingdom, please? You all can text me privately if you all are not confident with your answers. And yes, the most interactive students will be recognized. So, yes. Can you all give me an answer, please? Which kingdom did King Parakramabahu III rule? Anyone? Good that some students are texting. That's good. Come on, can I get an answer, please? It was Polonnaruwa Kingdom. I hope you all remember there was a dispute between King Parakramabahu III and King Bonikabahu II, right? You know, Arya Chakravarti, Kulakeshwara, I hope it rings a bell. Okay, never mind. Okay, fine. Let me ask another question. Mm, who was the king who established Kotte Kingdom? This is easy. King who established Kotte Kingdom? Come on, can I get an answer, please? Okay, fine. Make it open book. You guys can go check the book also. King who established the Kotte Kingdom. Who is it? Who was the king who established the Kotte Kingdom? Okay, then I'll answer that myself. It's King Parakramabahu the sixth. Yes. Yes, that's the right answer. And who's this? Hamdia Quraish. Yes, that's the right answer. It is King Parakramabahu the fifth. Okay, you guys should be able to, recall all these kings' names, right? Only it will be easy. Okay, now we are going to be moving on to the Candian Kingdom. Right. Screen share. Okay. So, when it comes to the Candian Kingdom, right, there are various names. So, we have Senkaragalanura, Udrat Rajdaniya, Kandinura, like that. It has several names, right? And Candian Kingdom, the main capital of the kingdom is Kandy. So, now, Candian Kingdom is actually naturally protected by the Mahavali River. Okay, so it's naturally protected by Mahavali River as well as Ghats like Balana and Hunnas Giriya. Okay, so now the person who established the Candian kingdom was King Sena Sammata Vikrambahu. Okay, so right after the downfall of the centralized power, centralized ruling system, King Sena Sammata Vikramabahu was the other person who established this Kandyan kingdom. Okay, so right after King Sena Sammata Vikramabahu, it was his son Jayavira Bandara who became the king. Right. So Jayavira Bandara became the king. Now Jayavira Bandara was a friend of King Mayadunna. So if you remember about the Vijayaba Kollaya, okay, that is the death of how the sons planned the death of King Vijayabahu VI, right? How they killed him. So during the Vijayaba Kollaya, right, King Mayadunna got support from Jayavira Bandara. So King Mayadunna was ruling Sitavaka at that time. Okay, so he was ruling Sitavaka. Right. So right after Jayavira Bandara, it was his son Karaliyadde Bandara. Now, if you look at Karaliyadde Bandara, now he was not like strong. Now remember at that time we had Portuguese in this country. Okay, so Karaliyadde Bandara was not completely against the Portuguese, right? So he was supporting them. He was friendly with them, right? So now this was sort of like now the people of Kandy didn't actually like Carlia de Bandara being involved with the Portuguese, right? So now what happened was they got invaded by King Rajasingha I. Okay, now Maya Dunna. Okay, now King Maya Dunna's his son was King Rajasingha I, right? So I'm writing it in short form as Raja. So King Rajasingha I was the son of King Maya Dunna, right? So King Rajasingha, he took the help of Peradeniya Veerasundara Bandara. So Peradeniya Veerasundara Bandara was a chieftain of Kandy. Okay. So with the help of Peradeniya Veerasundara Bandara, Rajasingha I, who was the son of King Maya Dunna, invaded the Kandian kingdom. So Karlia de Bandara, now he fled to the Portuguese for help along with his daughter as well as son-in-law. So his daughter, I'm going to put D, is Kusuma Sana Devi. Right. So his daughter is Kusuma Sana Devi and his son-in-law is Yamasingha Bandara. Right. So his son-in-law was Yamasingha Bandara. Okay. Now, right after going to the Portuguese, what happened was these two they baptized. Okay. So Kusumasana Devi she baptized into Donna Katharina and Yamasingha Bandara baptized into Don Philip. So he became Don Philip and she became Donna Katharina. Katharina. Right. Now, what happened was, now Kandyan kingdom, it was under the rule of King Rajasingha I. Okay. Now, you remember the chieftain, right? The Kandyan chieftain who was called as Peradeniya Veerasundara Bandara. So, basically, Veerasundara Bandara was the one who helped King Rajasingha I invade the Kandyan kingdom. Now, King Rajasingha I, he grew suspicious of this Veerasundara Bandara, right? Um, okay, let me repeat this again. King Senasamata Vikramabahu had a son who was Jayavira Bandara. So Jayavira Bandara's son was Karaliyadde Bandara. Okay, so the friend of Jayavira Bandara was King Mayadun. Now, when Karaliyadde Bandara was the king in Sitavaka, it was King Rajasingha I who was the king. Okay, so he invaded Kandy with the help of the Kandian chieftain, right? Veerasundara Bandara. Okay, Veerasundara Bandara was a Kandian chieftain, not a king, right? Now, what happened was so what he did was now he suspected, now King Rajasingha I suspected Veerasundara Bandara, okay, to be like, plotting against him or something, and he killed Veerasundara Bandara. So, after killing Veerasundara Bandara, his son, who was Konapu Bandara, he fled to the Portuguese. right? So now the Candian chieftain, right? Okay, so Candian chieftain Veerasundara Bandara, he had a son, okay, who was Konappu Bandara. Right. So Konappa Bandara now was afraid, okay, because now King Rajasingha I killed his father. So what he did was he fled to the Portuguese for help. So when he fled to the Portuguese for help, they baptized him as Don Juan of Austria. So again, he was baptized as Don Juan of Austria. Right. Now what happened was uh, the Candian chieftains, okay, eventually they started hating, the King Rajasingha. Okay, so what happened was the Portuguese they took advantage of the situation. Okay, and they sent Yamasingha Bandara. So who was Yamasingha Bandara now? Yamasingha Bandara was the son-in-law of Kerala at the Bandara. Yes, it might sound confusing, but I hope you can grab this, right? King Sena Samatha Vikramabahu's son is Jayavira Bandara, his son is Kalili Bandara, his son-in-law is Yamasingha Bandara, right? So we have Veera Sundara Bandara as well, who was the Candian chieftain. I'm so sorry, I don't know why they keep having the same names, right? Now, anyways, his son was Konappu Bandara, right? Anyways, so now Yamasingha Bandara, who was the son-in-law of Kallia de Bandara, was sent along with the Portuguese, okay, to Kandy in order to establish a ruling system, okay, which was loyal to the Portuguese now. So now what happened was after the death of Yamasingha Bandara, okay, so they also sent Konapu, now along with Yamasingha Bandara, they also sent Konapu Bandara, who was now baptized as Don Juan of Austria. Now what happened was after the death of Yamasingha Bandara, they tried to make the youngest son of Yamasingha Bandara, who was younger son of Yamasingha Bandara as the king. But Konapu Bandara, right? He didn't let this happen. So what he did was he got the support from the Candian, he captured the power of the Candian kingdom and he became the king as King Vimala Dharma Surya I. So King Vimala Dharma Surya I was basically Konapu Bandar, right? Okay. Now, um, under King Vimala Dharma Surya, yes, there's a lot to learn. So I'll just make this quick, right? So, King Vimala Dharma Surya, he obviously had to face certain challenges when he became the king. Okay, so if anyone didn't understand this order, please tell me, I can explain it again. I hope all of you got it, right? Can I have a response, please? At least some emoji, something. Just, okay, right. Okay, then. Moving on. So, King Vivadaram Surya, so he had to face certain challenges when he became the king. Okay, let's see what are those challenges, right? So, it's better if you have your textbook with you. Okay, so in page number 107, you can see it. Number one is he had no legal inheritance of the kingdom. So you all can think logically also. Okay, you don't have to sit and try to memorize these. Okay, so think logically. Now he became the king. Now Yamasingha Bandara's son was supposed to be the king, right? But then he, didn't let that person become the king. Instead of that, he, along with the support of the Canadian chieftains, he became the king. So obviously he had no legal inheritance to the throne, and also there were Portuguese influence in the country, right? So he had to save the Candian kingdom from the Portuguese as well. Now that is one side. If we look at the other side, he had to save the kingdom from the Sitavaka influences as well. Okay, so he had to save it from the Portuguese, from Sitavaka. He didn't have a legal inheritance, and also Buddhism was declined. Okay, because these people were fighting for power, who's going to become the king, that and this, right? And Buddhism was in a declining state because Portuguese were there, spreading their religion, Roman Catholicism. So, and also the economy was falling. So we've come across this, right? During Polonnaruwa, how when there were power struggles, automatically the economy fell, right? So he had to face these challenges. So now let's see how he overcame these challenges and became the king. Now, the first thing that King Surya had to do was to become the legal king of this country, right? So in order to become, okay, please let me know if I'm too fast, right? I can slow down. I hope you all got the 5 points, right? And if you all have any doubts, if you don't understand, if you want me to repeat things, please let me know in the chat, okay? Let me know. All right. So, let's see how he overcame these challenges. So, the first thing is how he took several steps to, earn his legal rights. Okay, now he had to legally become the king. So the first thing that he did was marrying Kusuma Devi. Now what the Portuguese did was, right, so after death of Yamasingha Bandara and his son had to become the king, right? So even after that, now King Vivadharma Suryavan, he became the king. So right after that, these Portuguese, they sent Kusuma Devi to make her the queen, right? Along with um, an army, a Portuguese army. So King Vivadharma Surya, what he did was he defeated this army, right? He defeated the army and he captured Kusuma Devi. Okay, so later he got married to her and he gained his legal right to become a Candian king. Okay, that is one thing, marrying Kusuma Devi. Second thing is he was a Roman Catholic, right? His name was Don Juan, right? So he abandoned Roman Catholicism and he became a Buddhist. Okay, so he embraced Buddhism again. And also, he had a Buddhist name. So he changed his name from John Juan and he went to Vimala Dharma Surya. And apart from that, there's one main thing that you have to have with you if you want to become the king of Sri Lanka. What is that? I mentioned this before. There's one important thing that you have to possess if you want to become the king of Sri Lanka. What is that? May I know, please? Yes, the tooth relic, right? You have to have the tooth relic. So what he did was he took the tooth relic which was hidden in the Delgamua to Kandy. So obviously we have Danda Maligawa and now it's kept there. So he possessed the tooth relic. Okay. So yes, those are the things that happen. So I'll repeat myself. In order to gain his legal right to the Kandyan kingdom, he married Kusuma Sana Devi. He became a Buddhist. Okay, he had a Buddhist name and he took the sacred tooth relic. Yes, now he is legally the king. Okay, right. So and also now he had to protect the country from the influence of the Sitavaka influences. So what he did was he defeated King Rajasingha I. Okay, so he defeated King Rajasingha I with the help of the Kandians to protect the country from the influence of the Sitavaka kingdom. Right. Then, now the Kandian kingdom was saved from Sitavaka, right? Now it has to be, saved from the clutches of the Portuguese. So now what he did was he defeated the Portuguese completely in the Battle of Danture. Okay, so Battle of Danture that took place in 1594 AD. Okay, so he completely defeated Portuguese there, and he took the assistance of the Dutch. Again, we see, this is where it started. So King Vivadharma Suryavan, he took the help of the Dutch to expel the Portuguese from the country. And there was low country rebellions against the Portuguese. So whenever there was a rebellion among the low country people against the Portuguese, this King Vivadharma Suryavan supported it. Okay. So those three ways he expelled Portuguese from freed the Candian kingdom from the clutches of the Portuguese. Right. Then let's talk about the steps that he took to bring in Buddhism again, how he rebuilt Buddhism. So he bought Upasampadava from Myanmar, right? He bought Upasampada from Myanmar and he also renovated old temples like Lankatilaka, Riddhi Viharaya, and Gadaladeniya. So he brought Upasampadava from Myanmar and renovated old temples like Lankatilaka, Riddhi Viharaya, and Gadaladeniya. Right. Now the king took several measures for the economic development of the Kandyan kingdom as well. So just remember like this. During Kandyan kingdom, when it comes to economic development, just keep Naya industry and cotton industry in your mind. Okay, so that's 2 points. So basically there are 4 points, and you can easily remember that. So he encouraged, the enhancement of cotton cultivation, and he took steps to develop the Naya industry and took actions to develop agriculture as well as iron and steel industries in Kothmale Valpane. So 5 things you can remember: cotton, Naya, iron, steel, as well as agriculture. Okay, so if you just remember these 5 things, you can easily build up the answer. Okay, so also this can be useful for essay questions also. When you all are like, if when there's big paragraph and when you try to study things, instead of memorizing the entire thing, try to remember key points. Right now, like this. Okay, now for such a question, for example, how King Vimaladharma Surya took steps to establish his legal right to become the Kandyan king. So for these kind of questions, you actually don't have to, think deep and go memorize. No, you don't have to. Just think logically and get the answer. Like, for example, the tooth relic, he was previously, Roman Catholic. He had to change religion, so he became a Buddhist, and he had a Buddhist name. And also, you can talk about how he became legally the king by marrying Kusumasana Devi. So, and also you can remember things by remembering keywords. So, just by remembering 1 or 2 words, you can build up the whole sentence, right? Okay, that way. So, anyways, King Vimadanam Surya 1. Okay, he attempted to develop the Kandyan kingdom in this way, and he eventually died in 1604. Okay, now after King Vimaladharma Surya I, it was King Senarath who became the king. Now, King Vimaladharma Surya I, now when he actually passed away, he had sons at a very young age. Okay, now Kusmasana Devi with Vimaladharma Surya I, they had 2 sons. Okay, and these sons are very small, they were very young. So they couldn't become the king. So his cousin brother, King Senarath, okay, he became the king, and he married Kusma Devi as well, and they had 1 son. Now, during this time, even when King Senrath became the king, he was also facing issues. He was also facing issues, like, for example, again, royal inheritance. So he was also like, he's not the son of Vimaladharma Surya, he's not his brother, also, he's the cousin brother. So, how was he going to establish, his right to the throne? So that was by again marrying Kusuma Devi, right? And he also minimized the threat that came from the Portuguese against the Kandyan kingdom. So he protected the Kandyan kingdom from Portuguese, as well as he had to gain his royal inheritance. So now, Kusuma Devi was married to King Senrath as well, right? So she had 2 sons with King Vimaladharma Surya I, and she had 1 son with King Senarath, right? So okay, right. So she had 2 sons with King Vimadarama Surya I and 1 son with King Senrath. So what King Senrath did was, now there were 3 sons, right? Now he didn't want a power struggle to happen between them. So he separated the kingdom into 3 parts. Okay. And I mean not the kingdom. He separated 3 different areas and he gave it to each son. Right? Now there were 3 areas. Uva, which was given to Prince Kumarasinghe. So Uva area was given to Prince Kumarasinghe. Then we have Matale, that was given to Prince Vijaypala. Right? So Uva area was given to Kumarasinghe, Matale to Vijaypala, and Kandy was given to King Rajasinghe too. So he was the king who ruled for the longest period of time, and he was a great king, right? King Rajasingha II. So King Rajasingha II, who was also known as Prince Mahastana, was a very smart person. He was a cleverer one. So out of all these three, he was a cleverer prince. So eventually, he was given the Kandyan kingdom. So Prince Mahastana, Prince Mahastana later became as King Rajasingha II, right? And he was given Kandy. So Uva was given to Kumara Singha, and Matale was given to Vijaypala. Okay. Then uh, again, the Portuguese was defeated on the Battle of Uvarandenivala in 1630 during the rule of King Senarath, right? Uvarandenivala. So we have the Battle of Danture against Portuguese that happened during King Vipradarma one's time. So Danture, King Vipradarma won. Uvarandenivala fight battle with the Portuguese was during King Senarath. Now we are going to be talking about King Rajasingha too. So when he became the king, he also faced several challenges. Okay, now first thing was from Portuguese. Okay, now he didn't want the Portuguese to, he wanted to prevent the attacks that was coming from the Portuguese. Okay, so he wanted to prevent attacks from Portuguese, and he wanted to chase the Portuguese out of this country. Apart from that, he had to reduce the threat coming from the Candian chieftains also. So earlier, if you remember, when Carolier de Bandara was the king, King Rajasingha I was able to invade Kandy because of the help of a Kandian chieftain, right? Who was Veerasundara Bandara. So he did that with the help of a Kandian chieftain who was Veerasundara Bandara. Okay, right. So therefore, he had to minimize the threats coming from the Candian chieftains also, and also he had to liberate the Candian country from the Dutch. Okay, now he had to face these issues, right? So he had to liberate the country from the Dutch influence. He had to prevent it from the attack of Portuguese, and he had to expel the Portuguese from this country. And at the same time, he had to minimize the threats coming to the Candian kingdom from the chieftains as well. Okay, so now, the king. Okay, so King Rajasingha II, he is the one who helped King Senarath win the Uvarandenivala battle. Okay, that was taking place when King Senarath was alive. Now, King Rajasingha II wanted to chase the Portuguese out of this country. So what he did was he needed naval power. So basically, an army, a power from the sea, from the sea area. Now, obviously he doesn't have a naval army, so he wanted a naval army. So because of that reason, he took the help of the Dutch. Okay, so with the with the help of the Dutch, King Rajasingha II was able to completely chase Portuguese from this country at 1638 AD. Sorry, 1658 AD, right? So at 1658 AD, the Portuguese was completely sent out of the country. Okay, so they were expelled. Portuguese were completely expelled. Now, what happened was, you know what the Dutch would do, right? Now they started, uh, you know, capturing the areas which were under the Portuguese. Okay, so now what happened was, from the years 1665 to 1668, so basically 3 years, a span of 3 years time, right? They were they started catching areas belonging to Candian kingdom also. So you don't have to remember the years, but just know that they started to capture, eventually they started to capture Candian area also. Now King Rajasingha too, right? He actually kept quiet all this while, and from 1670 to 1675, so for 5 years, right, for almost 5 years, he launched attacks, okay, on these Dutch people. And what happened, he took over all the areas that belong to Candian kingdom. Okay, so he got hold of those areas, as well as he could also capture certain areas which were under the Dutch, right? So he got his own area back, as well as captured more areas which belong to the Dutch as well. Okay, right. So now the Dutch people, okay, who understood the actual power of the king, okay, they understood the power of the king, and they decided to maintain a, a peace pact, okay, like be peaceful with the king, right? So then, like I said, the king, he managed to capture more areas which belonged to the Portuguese under the Dutch. And yes, so he also had the ports like Kalpitia, Chilao, Trincomalee, Batticaloa under him as well. So King Rajasingha II was a very powerful king. Okay, so he ruled the country for almost 50 years, right? So he ruled it for almost 50 years, right? Now, after King Rajasingha II, okay, it was his son, King Vimaladharma Surya II, who became the king. Okay, now King Vimaladharma Surya II was not as strong as his father. I couldn't find a picture of this person on the internet, right? So it's pictureless. Anyways, King Vimaladharma Surya II, he was the son of King Rajasingha II, and he was not a clever king as his father. So he was not as strong or as clever as his father. But there's one good thing that he did, right? He actually protected the country. He protected the places which belonged to the Kandyan kingdom. Now, during King Rajasingha's rule, King Rajasingha was able to capture certain areas and bring it under the rule of the Kandyan kingdom, right? So, King Vimaladharma Surya too, even though he didn't capture more areas, he could protect the areas which belonged to the Kandyan kingdom. Now, just like what he did was, he also tried to bring higher ordinance from Burma into this country. Okay, he tried to bring Upasampadava, and also the Dutch people helped him, bring the Upasampadava. So they assisted him, right? So he maintained a friendly relationship with the Dutch, and they helped him bring Upasampadava into the country. So he also renovated the Temple of the Truth. So he had done a few services, right? Protecting the areas belonging to Kandyan Kingdom, bringing Upasampadava, and renovating the Temple of the Truth, right? So he passed away. Now what happened was, after him, his son, King Sri Veera Parakrama Narendra Singha, became the king. Okay, so let's do a quick recap. First, it was King Vimadarmasuri. Now, this is a new lineage, right? Now, the lineage of Sena Samatha Vikramabahu, he was the person who established Kandyan kingdom. No, so the lineage of Sena Samatha Vikramabahu ended with Kerala de Bandara. I mean, King Vimadarmasuriya one did marry his daughter Kusuma Sanadevi, but what I'm saying is like it ended in the men wise, right? So it ended in Yamasingha Bandar. Okay, so it ended there. Now, from King Vimadharma Surya, we see a new lineage. Okay, so it's like we see some strong kings coming there. So we had King Vimadharma Surya I, then we had his cousin brother King Senarath. After that, we had King Senarath's son, King Rajasingha II, and then we had his son, King Vimadharma Surya II, and now the son of King Vimadharma Surya II, who is King Sri Veera Parakrama Narendra Singha. So he is a very important king. Why? Because he was the last Sinhalese king. So the kings who came after him, they belong to the Nayaka dynasty. So it's better if we remember um, this person, right? The last Sinhalese king. They could ask this in part one. This could be a question of part one, or maybe even it could be in the MCQs. So it's better if you know this, right? So King Sri Veera Parakrama Narendra Singha was the last Sinhalese king, right? So now he was also a weak king. Okay, he was not very familiar with administration, right? So during his time, the power of the Kandyan chieftains strengthened, right? And as a result, so basically he was not a strong king. Okay, so the Kandyan chieftains became more powerful than the king. They had more control. Now he also died without leaving an heir to the throne. So then what happened was, now he also followed, like, he married a South Indian princess. So there was a tradition, a family tradition of marrying South Indian princesses. So just like that, he also did marry a South Indian princess, and after his death he had no heir to the throne. So because of that, his wife's brother became the king as King Sri Vijaya Rajasingha. Right now, King Sri Vijaya Rajasingha, he is the first king of the Nayaka dynasty. So from King Sri Veeraparakram Ranjasinghe, he was the last English king. So his lineage ended there. Now it's the wife's brother, who is King Sri Vijay Rajasinghe, who became the king. Okay, right. Now let's see what he did. Okay, now with King Sri Vijay Rajasinghe, there was a new dynasty that started, right? Now there was one major challenge that King Sri Vijay Rajasinghe faced, that is from the Kandyan chieftains. So they were way too powerful, right? They were more powerful than the king. So what he did was he made his Nayaka relatives, he appointed his Nayaka relatives to the council. So he kept them closer to the king, right? So all the important positions were given to his relative, Nayaka people. So now he was obviously afraid, okay, because the Kandyan chieftains were growing more powerful. So he appointed his family members into the court. So this particular king, he eventually embraced Buddhism because they were Hindu kings, right? So he eventually embraced Buddhism, and he tried to bring Upasampada from Burma, but with the help of with the help of Velivita Saranankaratero, but his efforts were not successful, not that successful, right? So even he died, leaving no heir to the throne. So after that, after his death, again his wife's brother became the king as King Kirti Sri Rajasinghe. Right. After King Sri Vijay Rajasinghe, it was again he didn't have a son. His wife's brother became the king as King Kirti Sri Rajasinghe. Now, when King Kirti Sri Rajasinghe became the king, okay, he was only 16 years old, right? He was only 16 and he was not inexperienced. Now imagine, like, it's almost, I think some of you all are now maybe 17, 16, right? So your age. So imagine if you were supposed to, rule, let alone be the Candian kingdom. Obviously, you all couldn't do it, right? I mean, yeah, no, definitely not. So you would definitely need, help from an adult. Yeah, so it's something like that. Just imagine, right? So he was made the king. So now his father, who was Narayanappa Nayaka, he is the one who interfered in the affairs of the ruling. So obviously, king was only 16. He couldn't rule the kingdom on his own. So his father helped him to uh, rule the kingdom, right? With the political activities and everything. So during his time, yes, Buddhism was also at a very declining state. So he bought Upasampadava again. Uh, from Thailand. Okay, so it was led by a bhikkhu, a group of bhikkhus which who were led by Upalitero, and they brought Upasampada from Thailand again with the help of Velivita Sarnankaratero, and this time it was successful. So King Sri Vijay Rajasinghe also tried it with the help of Velivita Sarnankaratero, but it wasn't successful. But when King Kirtisi Rajasinghe did, yes, it was successful, and it also gave birth to the current day Siam sect, right? So now we have um, the present day Siam sect, and this was because of King Kirtisri Rajasinghe. And also he renovated temples, both up country, low country, and he also granted the name of Sangaraja to Saranankara Thero, and he also helped Thero to create a Buddhist revival. Right. So then what happened? What then after that? There were disputes between the Dutch as well as King Kirti Rajasinghe, right? There were disputes between the Dutch and the Canadian kingdom, right? Fights. So finally, all of this came to an end in 1766 AD when they signed the peace pact, right? So when did they sign it? 1766. So 1766, he signed a peace pact with the Dutch, and then all of these disputes that they had ended. So yes, in the case of King Kirti Sri Rajasinghe, he had done so much for Buddhism, renovating temples, bringing Upasampadava, the modern day, the present day Siam sect took place. It was the beginning, right? And also he granted the post of Sangaraja to Saranankaratero, all of those things, right? Okay, then he also signed a peace pact with the Dutch in 1766 AD. Okay, now King Kirtisi Rajasinghe, he also passed away with no heir. Therefore, his brother, King Rajadi Rajasinghe, became the king. So let's go through the Nayaka dynasty. First, it was King Sri Vijaya Rajasingha, King Kirti Rajasingha, then King Rajadi Rajasingha. There are only four kings, four Nayaka kings. This is the third one. Okay. So, yes. Now, King Rajadi Rajasingha, he was a brother of King Kirti Rajasingha. So, yes. So, when he became the king, there were fights between the Kandyan chieftains and the Nayaka kings. Okay. So, there were fights. Okay. There was a fight between the Kandyan chieftains. So there were fights, right? Just putting X's. Okay, so there were fights against them. So one of the important events that took place during his time was the British. They seized the coastal areas of this country in 1796. So British seized the coastal areas. Right. They seized the coastal areas in 1796 AD. Okay. So King Rajati Rajasingha also passed away with no heir to the throne. So we don't know much about King Rajati Rajasingha. Okay. We only know that when he became the king, there were fights between the Kandyan chieftains, right? So there were fights between the Kandyan chieftains and the Nayaka kings. And also during his rule only, British, they seized the coastal areas of our country in 1796 AD. So this can come for an MCQ. They can ask you, who was the king who was ruling the Kandyan kingdom when the coastal areas were seized by the British? So then your answer is supposed to be King Rajadi Rajasingha. Okay, so during his rule, the coastal areas were seized. Okay, then finally, the last Sri Lankan king, the last known Sri Lankan king, right? Even for the Kandyan kingdom and even to our entire country, the last known king, King Sri Vikrama Rajasingha. Okay, so we know this person very well. So you will learn more about him in the grade 11 book. Yeah, you would have learned. Yes. So King Sri Vikrama Rajasingha, okay, he became the king after King Rajadi Rajasingha's death. Okay. So so before he became a king, his name was Prince Kannasamy. Kannasamy. I hope you all know he had a brother called Muttusamy. He was supposed to be the king, but Prince Kannasamy was made the king by Mahadikaran Pilimatalave. Okay, so Mahadikaran Pilimatalave, according to his will, because Kandyan chieftains were powerful at that time, he made Prince Kannasamy the king. He became King Sri Vikrama Rajasingha. Now, what the prince did was, this king, he was young, okay, when he became the king. So what he did was he was obedient to his Nayaka relatives. So he listened to his Nayaka relatives. Now the Kandyan chieftains, they didn't like this. Okay, so the relationship that the Kandyan chieftain and the king, had, it started to decline. But he was a good king. Okay, so his ruling was good. He was ruling the country in a good way. So in the English, they invaded the Kandyan kingdom thrice. Okay, so the first invasion was in 1803. So 1803 was the first invasion, and second invasion was during 1815. Okay, so they couldn't capture the Kandyan kingdom in the 1803 invasion. Okay, why? Because the Kandyan people had supported the king. The Kandyan people had supported the king. Okay, so then, when the second invasion happened, that was in 1815, that time they were able to capture the country. So by February 1815, Candian kingdom was captured by the British, and by March 1815, all the Candian chieftains signed the treaty, and then it completely fell under the British rule, right? So I think we know why. We all know why King Sri Vikrama Rajasinghe lost the support of the people. Okay, so we know what happened to Ahelapola. Okay, so he became very cruel. That's because during the latter part of his life, he got addicted to alcohol consumption. So because of that, he got addicted, and then he was not human, right? So he was being very cruel, very rude. Like the way he suppressed rebellions were very gruesome. So he acted very cruelly, and people, they lost that love they had for their king. So eventually uh he was captured, right? And he was deported to Vellore by the English king, right? So Vellore is in India. So he was later deported to Vellore, right? Okay, now that's the story. That's the end of kingship. So after that, we are just going to be talking about the social organization, the economic structure, and all of that. So far, um, is there any doubt? You all have any doubts? Any doubts? No doubts? Okay. Then let me ask a question. Who was the last Sinhalese king? Come on, this is easy. Last Sinhalese king. Who was the last Sinhalese king? Who was the last Sinhalese king? Can someone answer, please? Sinhalese king. Yes, no, it's not Sri Vikrama Rajasinghe. It's King Sri Veera Parakrama Narendra Singha. All these kings, they belong to the Nayaka dynasty. Okay, maybe my question was wrong. But he is known as the last Sinhalese king, all right? As in Sinhalese in the sense coming from the Sinhalese blood, like, you know what I mean? Right, from that generation, because all these kings, like King Sri Vijay Rajasinghe onwards, it's the Indian blood, right? They are Indian kings, so South Indians. So they are not complete. So even though they were Buddhist, I didn't say last Buddhist king, I said last Sinhalese king, as in the nation, right? So it's King Veera Parakrama Narendra Singha. Okay, but never mind, some of you attempted to answer. That's good. Right. Let me ask another question. Who was the king who ruled the country for almost 50 years? The king who had a strong ruling. Oh, yes, we have one correct answer. Zuha. Yes, that's the right answer. So, can you answer this question now? Who was the king who ruled for more than 50 years? Sorry, 50 years. Yes, it's Rajasingha too. Farik Fawaz. Yes, that's the right answer. It's King Rajasingha too. Okay, let me ask another question. Who was the king who Separated the power of ruling among his three sons to prevent disputes between them. In order to prevent fights, he gave three areas of ruling to each of his sons. Who was that king? Yes, that's correct. Amin Ahmad. Yes, it's King Senarath. Yes, that's correct. Zoom user. Is that your name? Okay. All right. Okay. Hmm. Now let me ask another question. Who was the king who contributed the most towards Buddhism, which resulted in the present day Siam sect? His contribution towards Buddhism um, caused the present day Siam sect. Who is it? Who was the king? Yes, King Kirtisi Rajasingha. May I know your name, please? Okay, Shuhada. That's good. That's correct. Okay, good attempt. It's fine. King Vimaladharma Surya one, he also contributed a lot towards the religion, but the present day Siam sect, specifically, it was done by King Kirtisi Rajasingha. Okay, um, who was the king who who was the king who was able to protect the areas of Kandyan kingdom, even though he wasn't a strong ruler. So he wasn't a strong ruler, but still he could protect the areas that belong to Kandyan kingdom from going to the Dutch. Who was that king? Come on. Yes, that's correct. Amin Ahmad. Yes, it's King Vimadarma Surya too. That's right. It was him. Okay, not bad. I mean, initially you all weren't answering at all, but now it's not bad. You're at least telling something. Yes, that's right. Okay, may I know in which year was the peace pact signed between King Kirtisi Rajasingha and the Dutch? Which year was it? Which year was the peace pact signed between Kirtisi Rajasingha as well as the Dutch? King Kirtisi Rajasingha and the Dutch. Someone gave me the answer. Yes. Yes, it is 1766. Amina, right? Yeah, that's right. 1815, that was signed between the English and the Canadian chieftains. So they signed that in March 1815, and that means the Canadian kingdom belongs to the English now, right? So 1766 was the peace treaty. Okay, may I know which year the Portuguese came to Sri Lanka? Which year Portuguese came to Sri Lanka? Which year did the Portuguese arrive in Sri Lanka? Which year did the Portuguese arrive in Sri Lanka? May I know? Um, yes, it is 1505. Yes, that's right. Shuhada, right? Okay. Okay. So now let's move on to the administrative structure of the Candian kingdom. So this can get a little boring. So I'm going to like write it as a short form, right, in the board. So I hope you can grasp it through that. Okay, now if you look at the Candian kingdom, the administrative structure, first we have the king. So he is the head of everything, right? So we have the king, then he is always the first. So under the king, we have two adhikarams. Right? So first we have the king. Under the king, we have two adhikarams. Okay, and they are second to the king, second in position. So these adhikarams, they assist the king when it comes to taking decisions related to the country, right? And then they had a royal council. So there was a royal council established, in order to discuss all the political affairs of the country. And under these royal councils, there were four officers. So let's see who those four officers are. So we had the Disaves. Okay, Disaves were there. Then the Adhikarams were there. Then we had the Mahalekams. And Baddelekams. Baddelekams. Okay. So these were the people who belonged to the royal council. Okay, so they discussed about the affairs of the kingdom. Right. So let's do a recap of that again. So we have the king. Okay, so under the king, we have two adhikarams, and their position was second to the king. And also there was a royal council. Okay, so royal council was there. So this royal council was headed by the king. Okay, so king was the main person, main head in this royal council. And in that royal council, he had other officers like the Disaves, Adhikarams, Mahalekams, and Baddelekams. They also belong to the council. Now, this administration, it was separated into four different parts. Okay, so if you look at the administration, it was separated into four parts, right? So first, it was the service in palace. So we call that as Mahavasala Sevaya. So service in palace, this was directly headed by the king. Okay, so we have service in palace that was directly headed by the king. We also call this in Sinhala as Mahavasala Sevaya. Then we had provincial ruling. Okay, so provincial ruling. Provincial ruling was done by the Mahadhikarams, right? They were, second to the kings. So they did the provincial ruling. And after that, we had the tax collection, or Mahabadda, right? So again, tax collection was there. They were under the sectional heads of the particular area. Those people were in charge of this tax collection. And finally, it was the administration of temples and devalayas. Right, okay. Now let's do a short recap. Okay, so when we come to the administration structure of the Candian kingdom, first we have the king. Okay, he was the head. And under him, he had two adhikarams. Okay, so there was a royal council as well. So the royal council, the king was the head of the royal council, and he was the person who was in charge of leading this royal council. They mostly discussed about the political affairs of the country. All right. So there were four members, okay, including the king. We have Disaves, Adhikarams, Mahalekams, and Baddelekams. Okay, they were the ones who were in charge of collecting taxes. Then when we speak about administration, there were four types. Okay, one is service in palace, or we can call this as Mahavasala Sevaya, that was headed by the king himself, right? It was under the direct rule of the king. Then we have the provincial ruling, or we can call this as Vatavasama, done by Mahadikaram. Then tax collection was also there by Mahabadda, which was under the main sectional, under the sectional heads of the relevant areas or regions. And finally, administration of temples and devalayas. Okay, right. So this was the structure of the administration that existed in the Kandyan kingdom. Okay, now moving on to the king's powers. Okay, so king was the one who possessed the highest power in the country. Okay, so his main important task was protection, peace. He had to maintain peace and protection. Okay, so the king was expected to act in accordance with the tradition and customs, and the king held the authority as the highest in the court of the country, and he had the power to order death sentence to a convict. And yes, the king held the priority in executing all political, economic, and administrative affairs in the country. So if you look at nowadays, we have different people to look into the politics, different people for economy, administration. But back then, it was the king who did everything. So you can see the power of the king, right? He was basically the entire country, right? Like you look, he had political power, economic, administrative affairs. He could, order death sentence to a convict, okay, and he could, and also he was supposed to act according to tradition, custom, okay, and he had the highest power in the country. Okay, he was the highest. So yes, so you can see the power that the king had. So I took these points directly from the textbook. Okay, so you have to study these points. And then they have mentioned about adhikarams. Okay, so we have the Mahadhikaram and the Devana Adhikaram. Okay, so yes, I told you there are two adhikarams under the king. Okay, so yeah, the two adhikarams under the king, these were the people who were, in charge of, who assisted the king in ruling. Now let's talk about them. So there were two types. Okay, we have Mahadhikaram. Then we have the Devanadhikaram. So you can see in the textbook they have given places which are ruled by the specific adhikaram. Like for example, Hat Korale, Uwa, Matale, Valapane, Bintene, Vellas. These were all under the Mahadhikaram. And Hatara Korale, Thun Korale, Sabragamo. These were all under the Devanadhikaram. Okay, I mean, these places are not that important, but it's better if you know, could keep a few in mind. Right. Now, Mahadhikaram was called as Pellagampaha Adhikaram, and Devanadhikaram was called as Udagampaha Adhikaram. So now, to these Adhikarams, now when the kings are sending messages to this Adhikaram, the messengers, okay, who are going to be bringing these messages are going to be called as Katupulle messages. Okay, so they were the people who brought it, and their symbol was a silvering crane. So just remember the name of Katupulle messenger, because even in the textbook they have given it within brackets, so you're supposed to know that. Okay, so Mahadhikaram was known as Pelagampaha Adhikaram, Devanadhikaram as Udagampaha Adhikaram. Okay, so messengers who brought these messages to them were called as Katupulle messengers. Okay. All right. Then it's about the officers in palace. Okay, Mahavasala, or we can call them as the officers in palace. So they are also, there's nothing much to teach. It's only memorizing. You all have to memorize. So they have a. Now if you look at the officers in palace, they have a people who are in charge of food and providing jewelry, the clothes. Okay, and looking after the people. Like there were several duties, right? So you have Gajanayaka Nilame, Mahaleka, Mahabad, Gavada Nilame. So all of these people, uh, they came under the officers in palace. Okay, right. Now let's talk about provincial ruling. Ratavasana. Okay. Now, when we talk about provincial ruling, there are 21 areas. Okay, 21 areas under Rata and Disava. Okay, so they have given places in your book, right, that belongs to the Rata, and also they're given certain place in the book that belongs to the Disava. So we have 12 Disavas, right? And the officers who are in charge of ruling the Ratta, they were called as Ratte Rala and Ratte Mahatvaru. Right. So they were called as Ratte Rala and Ratte Mahatvaru. These were the people who were ruling the Ratte. And also under them, there were other officers also called as Liana Ratta and Undiya Ratta. Sorry. Liana Rala and Undiya Rala. Okay, so we have Rate Disava, Rate Rala, and Mahatvaru were the people who were in charge of the Rata, as well as under them there are other officers called Liana Rala as well as Undiya Rala. Okay, now let's talk about Disava. Now Disavas were separated into choral. Okay, Disava was separated into Korala, and Korala was separated into Pattu. All right. So the Disava was separated into Korala, and Korala was separated into Pattu. Now, the Koralas, they were headed by Muhandirams. Okay. So Koralas were headed by Muhandirams, and the Muhandirams were in charge of the caste. Right? So Muhandirams were in charge of each caste. Now below Muhandirams, we have the officers called Vidanis. Vidanis. Okay, these Vidanis, they were in charge of villages. Right. So here you can see, okay. So Disava was divided into Korala. Korala was divided into Pattu. Right. And then Koralas were headed by Muhandirams. Muhandirams were in charge of each caste. So Muhandirams were divided into Vidanes, and they were in charge of the villages. Right. So again, if you look at the textbook, you can take a look at the tax system. Okay, the Badhya structure that was there. Okay, so this Badhya Sangvidhane, basically the Badhya structure, okay, it came under the Disave during the latter part of the Kandyan kingdom. So we have the Madige Badda, transport affairs, Kuruve Badda, catching tuskers, Batahela Badda, pottery, Rata Badda, washing clothes, Handa Badda, weaving clothes. So you have to know all of these, right? So they can give you the singular word and ask you for the English meaning. Or they can ask you these also. What are the Badde Sangvidhanas, Badde structures? Then you have to give these things. So better, so yes, you have to know that. Now, finally, we are going to be talking about the administrative affairs when it comes to temples and devalas. So, like how I mentioned earlier, you can see services in palace, provincial ruling, tax, Mahabadha, and temples and devalas. So these were the four types of administration, and they have explained it further as well. This is the deep explanation of these 4 points, right? So finally, we are ending up with administrating temples and devalas. So under that, you should know this, right? Diyavarna Nilame was the one who was in charge of going to the activities of Dalada Maligav. So these administration, right? So administration of temples and monasteries, they were mainly under Mahanayaka, right? Okay. Mahanayaka or Mahanayaka as well as Anunayaka Terus. Right, okay. So now this Diyavarna Nilame. Okay, Diyavarna Nilame, he was in charge of Dalada Maliga, which basically means he was in charge of maintaining the temples, devalayas, and holding the Perahera, pujas, all of those things, right? Now, let's talk about the judicial affairs. Right. So now, when we come to the judicial affairs, king had the highest judicial power. Okay, he was the highest. He has the highest power in the country. Therefore, king had the highest judicial power, and every officer had a judicial power according to their post. Okay, so there are different posts. Okay, so according to your post, you have the specific power, and there are some cases which are only heard by the king. Right. So I mentioned 3 points under judicial affairs. King had the highest judicial power, right? And the officers had judicial powers according to their posts. And finally, king had the sole authority to listen to certain types of cases. So certain types of cases was only going to be heard by the king. Right. Okay. Now these are the types of cases which can be only heard by the king. Okay. So we have cases regarding important leaders. Then we have cases regarding temples and monks, cases regarding riots, cases regarding treason, cases regarding conspiracies and coups. Okay. Then again, we come back to the punishments that was given. Okay. So we had whipping, banishing, drowning, thrashing with ipala, imprisoning, cutting your hair, like finning, beating, then keeping it dandukanda, yeah, being trampled by elephants, and obviously death, and again imprisoning. Okay, so these were some of the most cruel, inhuman punishments that were given, right? Like killing by trampling upon elephants. That's very cruel. So I think this is very easy. If they ask you to mention about the types of punishments that was given during that time, I hope you can write it, because these are easy, right? Drowning, banishing, whipping, finning, beating, imprisoning, cutting the hair, all of these things, right? Okay. Now, that's about punishment. Now let's talk about the economy, right? So in Candian Kingdom, okay, may I know what type of an economy that was there? What type of an economy they had? May I know, please? What do we call that type of an economy? Anyone? Any answers? No? Okay, so it was a self-sufficient economy. Okay. So you see, people were mostly, yeah, yes, agriculture basically, yes. So people were mostly, involved in paddy cultivation. And since, uh, Candian area was mainly under, this Rajarata Ruhun areas, right? So they couldn't actually do this agriculture because they lacked irrigation, a proper irrigation system. So mainly they carried out Chena cultivation. And also, I hope you all have seen, like mostly, yes, according to consumer needs, yes, a consumer-based economy. So during the Candian kingdom, right? you see, Chena cultivation was quite famous compared to paddy cultivation. So usually, if you all have been to the eastern side, mainly the dry zone, if you look at the paddy cultivation, you can see how, it's it's neatly, it's neatly done, and you can see the paddy field. Okay, they're cut in box shapes. They're like, boxes. But take a look at this picture, right? This is a type of paddy cultivation that is done in hill, like, hillsides, in hilly slopes. So you can see it. So the cuts are not exactly, square shaped, and you can see how, I mean, it's very beautiful, but you can see how it's done. You can see the difference, right? So this was the paddy cultivation that was done in the Candian area. Okay, Candy area. Nowadays, of course, no, but back then, yes. This is the Chena cultivation. Okay, and also they grew grain. So there is nothing to explain here. It's mostly what you'll have to study, like grains like kurakan, amu, maize, wheat, yam, sweet potato. Then they had vegetables, fruits. Just link it. Okay, in those cold areas, what can you grow? You can grow vegetables, you can grow fruits, then pepper, cardamom, areca nuts, jack, breadfruit, right? So they also had industries. Okay, so you can link it. Now, here they have mentioned there was iron industry, metal industry, wood industry, lacquer, and reed industry. Okay, so you can link it to King Vivadharma Surya once time. Okay, where there was iron and steel, cotton. You can link it to that, and you can write some points as well. So here they have mentioned about iron, wood, metal, lacquer, and reed. Okay. Then animal husbandry also was done for agriculture and getting milk. So animals were also grown. Okay, to plow the land you need animal, to get milk, meat, you need animals, right? And also uh, yes, food needs were satisfied by supplementary crops. That means if you all couldn't get rice, they, were able to cultivate other things like kurakan. So instead of wheat, they ate kurakan. So food needs were satisfied by other crops, supplementary crops. Okay, so that was the economic style of the country. Okay, now we are coming to the latter part of this lesson, the social organization. Okay, now when it comes to society, the family was the most important unit of the society, right? um, the family was a very important social unit. Okay, and the prominent feature of the society was virtue. So the prominent feature of then society was virtue. Okay, virtue was a prominent feature, and family was the main social unit. Okay, family was the main social unit, and the lives of the people were connected. Okay, it was connected with the temple. Okay, so if you look at this, they go to the temple to worship in the morning. It's very beautiful if you imagine, that particular environment or the particular lifestyle that was followed by people back then. Okay, so they would wake up, and they would go to the temple, and so the nature, so beautiful, right? And so because of that, their lives were closely connected to the temples. Okay, then let's talk about the society, right? Now, the society of the Candian kingdom, okay, so it was a self-sufficient society. So, village, right? A village-based self-sufficient society, and they had different castes. They had a caste system. Well, thank God we don't have such caste systems now, okay, but back then they had these different castes, right? So, higher class, lower class, okay, they had a caste system, and they were very strict about their caste. Okay, so it's like this. These different castes have their own economic activity. They had their own jobs. Okay, so if you're like someone who washes clothes, you guys belong to a separate caste. If you're going to be a person who is engaging in pottery industry, you're a different caste. Okay, or maybe if you're like a very important person, maybe a doctor family, right, who are involved in this, medicinal stuff. So y'all are a different caste. So an aristocrat, different caste. They had a caste system, and they were very strict about it, right? So even when it comes to marriages, it was only done between the similar caste. So if you're a potter's family, you can only marry someone who belongs to another Potter's family. You cannot marry someone from an aristocrat. Okay, so it wasn't done like that, right? So people with each caste. Okay, and yes, marriage was also done based on this caste system. So there were three types of marriages. We have Binna Vivahaya, Diga Vivahaya, and Ekagei Kema. Okay, now when it comes to Diga Vivahaya is when the bridegroom is going to go to the is when the bride is going to be coming to the groom's house. Okay, so Diga Vivahaya is when the bride goes to groom's house. Then we have Binna Vivahaya. In Binna Vivahaya, the bridegroom is going to be living in the bride's house forever. Okay, like he's going to be staying there. Then we have Ekagei Kema. So Ekagei Kema means you're going to be taking one bride for two brothers belonging to the same family. So maybe two, three brothers, right? So this is mainly done to keep the family property under them, like to keep it under the same family name. Now, for example, if you're going to be having two brothers and you take two wives, okay, so they are going to have different children. Okay, so first brother has some kids, second brother has some children. There's going to be fights between them in order to you know for the property. They are going to have fights for the property, and uh, there's going to be disputes, and because of that the wealth is going to get separated. So all these things are going to happen, right? So in order to avoid all these things, what they did was they took one bride for the same family of two three brothers, right? So that way they could keep the family wealth within the family. Okay, then after that we are going to be talking about the lands. Okay, so they believe that all the lands belong to the king. Okay, so every land area. So the king was the owner of the entire land area. So if the king wishes, he granted a piece of land to people or aristocrats. Okay. Now we have something called Rajakarya. So Rajakarya is like the service of a countryman that he gives it to the king. Okay, so he offers his service to the king. So, for example, in constructing devalayas or in constructing stupas, tanks, palaces, right? So people, or even cleaning, right? So people gave their work, their service towards the king. So in return of this, the king would offer them a piece of land. So these kinds of lands, we call them as Paravenigam. Okay, Paravenigam. So Paravenigam are the types of lands given by the king to the countrymen for the service that they're offering. Then apart from that, we also have the Gabadagam. Okay, Gabadagam Gabadagam are the land areas which is allocated for the king's use of the king's palace. Then we have Nindagam. Nindagam is offered to the aristocrats by the king, right? So we have Paravenigam. Paravenigam is a piece of land offered to the people by the king, the countrymen by the king for the service they offered. Then Nindagam is the piece of land offered by the king to the aristocrats. Then Gabadagam is the piece of land that is allocated for the use of the king's palace. And Viharagam is the land offered to temples. And Devalagam is the land offered to Devalas. Okay, so that's it. We have come to the end of the lesson 8. Okay, so we have done lesson 7 and 8. If you ask me, this was actually the two most annoying lessons. Okay, why? Because you have to remember all of the king's name as well as their functions, whatever they did, their services, and you should also remember them in the correct order. So yes, um, and it's also a difficult lesson to remember. So if you look at the other lessons, they're quite interesting, especially Renaissance. Renaissance is a very interesting lesson, and even the last lesson is fun. It's about how Sri Lanka was captured. So yes, so we're done with the two lessons. Okay, so do you all have any doubts? Any doubts? Okay. Right. Hmm. Okay. So no doubts. Let's see. No. Okay, fine. Then, right. So this is the tute. Okay. So all the questions are quite specific. So if you could manage to do all the questions, try all of it before the exams, it's much better because MCQs are going to be easy and even essay questions are going to be easy, right? So these are the model questions. So they are not target, they are just model. Okay. So you know the structure. So we have 18 marks. Okay, for each question. So mainly I'll have to focus for the question third and fourth. Okay, third and fourth parts are going to be quite not difficult, but you have to write a lot. Okay, so in history, since it's a it's you have to use your English language. Okay, your English knowledge. So use that. Okay, I'm not asking you to expand and make it look like a long essay. That's not what I mean. What I'm saying is, like I mentioned earlier, they don't expect you to copy paste from the textbook. You can write like in freestyle. So you just have to know certain keywords, like I mentioned. For example, if it's about an essay, like about King Vivadharma Suryavan, just know the key points. Okay, using those key points, try to build your answer. So these are for model question that I made. So mainly, even though if you don't exactly study these parts and go right, but then it's better if you focus on these lessons. Like they haven't asked about the prehistoric man, their lives, their food style, their lifestyle for a very long time. So it's better if you all focus on those areas and also this part, the political revival, these stuff, right, during Renaissance. So these topics were also not mainly asked like last year and previous year. So better if you all could pay more attention to these lessons, these areas, before going to the exam. Not target, I'm saying again, but pay attention to the lessons. Okay, right. So let's look at the paper structure. I hope you all have. Do all of you all have the tute, even the soft copy? Do you all have it? Can I get a yes or something like that? Yes. Okay. Yeah. So please try it. Okay, I know history. It's actually, according to me, I enjoyed learning history because it was it's like basically like a story, right? So it's kind of the way my teacher taught me was like, in a story format, and it was a very interesting lesson to me. So I took a lot of interest in studying history. So mainly, it's about making short notes. Okay, a lot of short notes, tables, charts, mind maps. That's how you study history. You can't just sit down and memorize everything. No, you can't do that. So just try to make tables and stuff and studying history. And yes, before going to the exam, try to attempt this tute. Okay, even if you can't do all the questions, the questions which you find weak, for example, if Renaissance is weak, do all the questions under Renaissance, right? And if you find other lessons weak, like unit 10 or something, try to do all the questions under that unit. Okay, so whatever you find difficult, um try to do that. Okay, right. So let's take a look at the paper structure a bit. Okay. Okay. So we have 40 MCQs, right? So look at these MCQs, not even that difficult, right? So if you do those short answer questions, okay, these are going to be nothing. Okay, these are going to be so easy. So you can easily score that 40 mark. So you should know that for the MCQs, right? If you basically have 35, it's an A. Okay, so if you can score more than 35 years, that's so good. But if you have a 35, that's an A, right? And also remember, I hope you all know this, right? So when it comes to O levels, 70% is coming from grade 10 and the remaining 30% from grade 11. So I know grade 11 lessons are quite long, and especially the lesson 6, about I think lesson 6, if I'm not mistaken, Colebrook Cameron reforms and all of that. So they can be quite tough. So maybe not pay much attention to those difficult parts, right? So here you have 70% of the syllabus. So then just know your priorities. Okay, so if you are like a very good student and if you're thorough with everything, yes, that's so good. Yes, if you can get all 40s, that's amazing. But if you're like a last minute person, I think maybe focus on the tute, right? So if you focus on the tute, you can get like at least 35 for the MCQs. Okay, that's so good. If you get more than 35, yes, it's an A. 35 is also an A, so try to go for it. And yes, talking about timing, now going to be you have to answer 6 questions within 2 hours, right? So 6 questions within 2 hours. If you target 30 minutes each question, you could finish it within 3 hours. So you'll have an extra 10 minutes to staple your paper and go through it and all of that. Okay, so let's go through this. So now first you're going to be having map marking, right? So this is something that I hated the most as well. Map marking. So you're getting like 20 marks. Okay, 20 marks from the paper for map marking. So if you are really not quite sure about Sri Lankan map marking, because look at these places, Point Pedro, Puttalam, Kandy, these are Mahaveli River. Okay, these are like not that difficult places, right? So they wouldn't give you, you know, difficult ones. They would just give you, because this paper is doable. Anyone can do it. It's not like an impossible paper, right? So they have structured the O-level papers in such a way that everyone can pass and get a good mark, right? So focus on the Sri Lankan maps. And if you really can't do Sri Lankan maps, do the world maps. World maps are easy, right? Only few places you have to remember. And compared to Sri Lankan maps, world maps are easy. So even if you can't take the entire 20 marks, at least try to grasp 15 or 12, okay, at least 12, okay, from the map marking. And then moving on to the B part. This is very easy. Okay, usually these questions are very easy, and you won't even take I don't know, maybe 1 minute to answer these questions. Okay, it depends on your brain power. So how fast you know it comes to your mind. So look, these are easy, right? What is the simple machine used to make clay pots in ancient times? Sakaporuwa, first king of Anuradhapura, King Pandukabaya. So like these are easy questions. Okay, so anyone can answer. So let's see, if you don't know the answer for D part, at least you can get the first three right. And also now talking about the picture based questions, okay, you're definitely going to be getting one picture that is going to come from grade 10 and another picture that's going to be coming from the grade 11 book. So what you'll do is at least take maybe 30 minutes, okay, before the exam, or every day, even 10 minutes is fine. Okay, just 10 minutes. You have 24 hours. Okay, in that 24 hours, you can definitely allocate 10 minutes for this. No, just go through all the, like maybe lesson by lesson for one day, select one lesson and do it, because y'all still have time, okay, for the exam. So go through one lesson and look at the pictures thoroughly, like look at the picture and clearly read the description given under the picture, so that you can answer these questions. Okay, look at the picture and read the description, and maybe try to ask yourself some questions. Okay, like maybe close the book and think about, imagine that picture in your mind and try to talk about it or ask questions about it. So like that, you have to study the pictures. You can do this. You have to do this for grade 10 as well as 11. So that way you can score that 8 marks as well. Then moving on to this, you have to choose 4 questions from part 2 and 1 question from part 3. Okay, so if you look at part 3, it's world history. Okay, so if you're a person who's really good at world history, then yes, you can definitely get all these right. Okay, so anyways, world history is very interesting compared to Sri Lankan, to be honest. So yeah, you have to study world history as well. So that is also an important part. So you can choose one of these questions. Okay, I think compared to the world wars and stuff, Renaissance is actually easy, right? The one in that is lesson 9. Lesson 9 is very interesting and it's easy as well compared to world war. Now, just because I told easy, please don't go do Renaissance, okay? Choose the question what you're comfortable with. So go there and don't always pre-select the questions and okay, don't be like, okay, you know what? I am thorough with the unit 2. So I'm going to choose the question on unit 2. Don't be like that, okay? Be thorough with everything. Go there and pick a question. Okay, go there and pick the question what you're comfortable with. Okay, because you're getting 10 minutes of reading time. Okay, so go there and pick. Don't pre-prepare and go. At last, if you don't get the question, you know what you prepared for, you're gonna become stressed and you will forget what you know as well. So just be prepared for everything, right? So that's world history. You can pick one. Right, okay. So now this is the Sri Lankan history. Okay. So for these questions, it's better if you all maintain a 25-minute time. Okay. So, anyways, if you all know the answers for these Devatva, Parvatara, Chakravarti, these questions, they are easy, no? So, anyways, for the first and second part, you wouldn't spend much time, maybe 2-3 minutes. Okay. If you don't know one thing, just leave it. Don't struggle with it. Just leave it, right? So, maybe 2-3 minutes. And for these essay questions, take 10 minutes each. Okay. Don't take more than that. Take 10 minutes each. Okay. So, then you can somehow try to time it within 25 minutes. Though if your time is exceeding beyond 25 minutes, move on to the next question because you have to write 10 essays. You're not writing a few essays, you're writing 10 essays. Therefore, you have to write all 10. You have to attempt the questions and you have to organize your time and allocate your time according to that. So make sure that you try to finish one question within 25 minutes. Okay, then you'll have more time, extra time to do the questions as well. And also remember, so I think your teachers must have told this, right? So if you're doing one question, if you do question number 2 in one page, question number 3, don't write below that. Okay, like if this is your page, okay, and if you have done question number 2 here, and let's say question number 2 ends here itself, you have so much space, leave it, go to the next page and start question number 3. Don't try to put question number 3 and continue like this. Okay, that is wrong. Don't do that. Okay, question number 2, question number 3, and if you're done with that, for question number 4, go for a new page. Okay, they will give you pages. Yes, you can do that. And also remember, if you're writing an essay question, okay. Now let's say for question number 2, you're trying to write an essay question. Okay. So let's say question number 2. Now you're writing the third essay question. Okay. And you're writing. Now you have written. Okay. What you do is you don't right away start question number 4 here. Don't do that. Okay. What you do is, so you do the third question. Okay. You write and you leave some space, maybe up to 6-7 lines, and then you start question number 4. Because it's like this. While writing the paper, right, when you're doing, sometimes you might remember things that you missed in this part. Sometimes you might remember things or points that you could add to this particular question. So what you do is, oh, I think I'm not sharing the screen. Hold on. Right. I'm sorry, this is what I wanted to share. Yeah, so what I was mentioning is, if you do question number two, right? And if you're writing the third question here, and if you're, let's say you're done writing the essay question, right? Don't start the fourth question here. Don't start it right away. Okay. What you do is you try to leave around 6, 7 lines here, and then you start the fourth one. Because when you're writing this, okay, let's say you remember some points that could be added here. If you remembered some points that could be added here, what you do is you can come back and you can write those points. Now, in this case, you have no space. Okay, like you guys put that, what is that called? The crocodile thing. Okay, you can't put like this and trying to cram in spaces. Okay, you see, because the O-level markers, they have to mark like a lot of papers. Okay, they are not going to sit and read these things. Okay, if they don't like it, they're just gonna cut it off, right? So please don't do that. Please leave 6, 7 lines. If there's anything, you can get back and write the other information that, whatever the information extra you have, you can write it there. And also, I mentioned this earlier. Question number two in one page, question number three in one page. So what I was saying is, now let's say you write question number two, okay, and let's say you end it here itself, half a page. Now you have all these space, okay. Don't be stingy. Move on to the next page, because they will give you papers. Okay, if you ask for papers, they are going to give you. Okay, don't be like, oh my god, no, the space is going to get wasted and right here. That's not the way. Okay, don't do this. Please don't do this. After you're done with question number two, start question number three in a new page. Okay, do that. That way your work will be neat as well, and you can also create a good impression, on the examiner. Right. So, yes, and also another thing that I wanted to mention is about essay writing. Okay, now, sorry. Okay, so now when you're reading through this essay question, okay, let's say you remembered some points. So I'm like reading through this essay question, I remember some points. What I do is I jot things down in point form. Okay, so if I'm going to be remembering something, for example, here, describe the reference of two examples to different religions in ancient Sri Lankan society. So you know that example where they have mentioned about you can mention about Devalas. Okay, according to this lesson, yeah, this is from the sixth unit. Okay, how they mentioned about the Sinhalese woman had married a Buddhist man. Sorry, Sinhalese woman had married a Tamil man. So those examples, okay, that's what you have to write here. So what you do is you just put a point form. So you'll have to put a point form, and you can write down that piece of information. Okay, so whatever you remember under this point, okay, let's say they have only asked you for two examples, but you remember more than two examples. It's fine. Write everything. Okay, write all the points that you remember. Even in this case, if you remember points, write it down. Write it down. Write it down. So they're asking about different professionals. So you can write about those examples they mentioned about, the Parumakalu, okay, the Parumaka whose husband was a dancer. So that's also again the sixth lesson. This is under sixth lesson, right? So you can write that. You can write about the Vejjasala, okay, the Vejjas, the surgeons, okay. So all of those things are going to be coming under this. So what you do is you jot down the points, whatever you remember. It's okay. Even if you remember 5, 6 examples, it's okay. Write everything down then and there, and don't start the essay. Go to the next question. Read through it. Okay. So okay, look at this. This is the lesson we did today. Describe with reference 2 points the nature of trade during second urbanization period. So we spoke about the what are the things that they exported. Okay, we spoke about the countries they maintain trade with. You can write the example of Ibn Battuta. So all of these things can be written in this. So whatever you remember, jot down the points. Okay, and later When you come back, you don't have to recall these things again because maybe you will forget the points. So now you have gone through all the questions that you want to write. So 5 questions. So you come back to the first question, you start writing. You don't even have to think for the essay question. You know the keywords, maybe 2 or 3 words. Those are your keywords. Using those keywords, build your answer using the English you know. That's it. You can directly go for an A. Okay, it's not that difficult. It's easy, and yes, you can do it. Right. So we've reached the end. Any doubts? Anything you guys wanna get clarified? We have finished it early, 30 minutes early. Yeah. So anything that I have to, you know, any doubts you all have? Anything to be cleared? Are y'all sleeping? And obviously, y'all shouldn't be sleeping. Okay. Yes, someone has replied. MCQs. Yeah, we can do. Anyone else? Okay. So I can do this, right? Sri Lankan map and world map. You all want fully marked ones, no? Okay. Mm, so give me 3 days time. Okay, I'll be sending in the group. I'll be uploading fully marked Sri Lankan maps and world maps. Okay. So any other requests? So you all want Sri Lankan maps and world maps. Anything else that you want from me? Anything at all? It's fine. What about the pictures? Do you all want anything regarding that? The picture-based questions. Okay, so you all want picture-based questions also. Okay. Okay, I have a tute. Right, okay. So I'll try to, so I'll be sending the maps and then picture-based questions, right? Okay. Mm, okay then, let's do something fun. So I'll show you all a picture and you tell me what you know about it. Okay, let's do that. So it's fine. You can tell anything at all. Okay, if it's wrong, it's fine. So I'll just show a random picture and tell me what you know about it. Let's start with the lesson that we did today. Okay. What do you know about this person? Tomorrow's class. Yes, tomorrow's class in the morning. That will be also going for 3 hours, 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. That is a morning class tomorrow. That will be done. That will be done by different tutor. Right? She'll be doing the. She'll be covering the grade 11 lessons tomorrow. Yes, someone, anyone who know about this person? Yes, he's King Rajasingha too. If you want to unmute the mic, you can raise your hands or something, or tell that you want to be unmuted. So I'm like the only person talking here. No one wants to unmute. Okay, fine. Yes, he's King Rajasingha too. That's all y'all know. So y'all can only answer the first question. What is depicted by this picture, King Rajasingha too? That's it. Okay, let me ask another question. Who was his son? Who was his son? He had a son. Who was it? Yes, it's King Vivadharma too. Y'all are supposed to answer quick, okay? Amina is good. Okay, fine. I'll ask someone else. Okay. What is this? What is this? Come on, tell me. Okay, I'm getting a lot of answers. The broken clay pot. Yes, I know it's a broken clay pot. Okay, I forgot. Clay pot. A clay pot found in, yes. Hamdiya Horesh. Yes, that's the right answer. A clay pot found in Udarancha Madama. You'll have to be specific, okay? Obviously, the examiner knows it's a broken clay pot. Yes. And you can't write I forgot as an answer. Okay, you can't do that. Yes, a clay pot found in Udarancha Madama. That's the right answer. What is special about this? Anyone who knows what's special about this? Is anyone? Yes. Wow. Kala Rakta Varna Mati Bandun. Amazing. Yes. But you can't write that. I mean, you can, but you have to, better if you write clay pot found in Udrancha Madama / if you want, you can write this. Kala Rakta Varna Mati Bandun. No problem. Okay. So you can write both, okay? No problem. But it's better if you write the English name as well, because why lose that mark, right? If they don't give that mark, then that's in vain. Okay. So what was the tool used to make this? What was the tool used to make this? What was the tool used to make this? Potter. Yes, potter's wheel. Sakaporo, yes. So you can write potter's wheel as well as Sakaporo. Okay, what other things was found additional to this pot shed? There were some women beauty items found. What are they? Some items that ladies use even back then were found along with this pot. Okay, what is it? Kohel sticks. Yes, yes, to apply Kohel to the eyes. What else? Yes, 2 brown stones to rub on the skin. Okay, good, good, good. And also something else was found, clay beads. Okay, let's move on to the next picture. Okay, it's something difficult this time. These are identifiable. Mm, All right. Who's this guy? Who's this person? Who's this person? Okay. Yeah, a lot of responses. Ga Ga Galileo. Okay, please. Yeah, learn the correct spellings. Yes. Galileo Galilei. Yes. Gali Galileo Ali. Okay, no, it's Galileo Galilei. Yes. Please make sure you write the correct spellings and both the G's are capital, okay? Okay. So, what is he doing? What did he invent? It's very obvious. Yes, he invented the telescope. Okay. Okay, let me ask you some questions related to this. May I know an author, okay, from England back then? He's very famous, an English author during the Renaissance. You all know him. He's very famous. He wrote a very famous play also. Yes, it's William Shakespeare. Yes, that's him. Shakespeare. You should write William Shakespeare, okay? He's not your uncle, no? Right. Hmm. Okay. Then, may I know a famous artist? Name of two famous artists, two famous painters, actually. Two painters during that time. Two famous painters during the time. Leonardo da Vinci, yes. Yes, Michelangelo. Who else? Can I have one more name? Yeah, Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, one more, one more. Yes, Botticelli. Okay, good. Not bad. Raphael, yes, Raphael. Yeah. Okay, good. Mm, all right. Okay then. Do you all want to end the class or do you want another picture? Should we do this till 11? Let me know if you want we can stop now or we can keep going till 11. Where are the responses? It's okay, just let me know if you all want it or if you all want to keep going till 11. Enough. Okay, one person is saying enough. Yeah, you all have a session tomorrow as well, but it's a different tutor. That's for grade 11. Okay, so we'll do one last picture and then we'll stop, right? Okay. Tell me this. What is this? Come on, it's easy. What is this? Yes, it is Galpo the inscription. May I know who wrote the inscription? Who wrote the inscription? Yes, King Nishanka Malla. Okay. And oh my God, look at the way you are typing like so fast when I told it's the last thing. Okay. May I know how long King Nishanka Malla ruled for? How long did he rule for? How long did King Nishanka Malla rule for? Yes, 9 years. And I wanted to ask about another question about it. Sorry. Where is this located? Where do you find this inscription? Where is it located? Yes, that's right. Polonnaruwa. That's correct. Polonnaruwa. Okay, then that's it. So we'll end it for the day. So if you guys have any doubt, you can text me regarding that. Okay, and all the best for the exams. Good luck studying the entire syllabus for history. It's going to be a pain, I know, but uh, you have to go through some pain, if you want a good result. So yes, all the best. Recording, it'll be there on YouTube. Yeah, okay. You can get the recording on YouTube. It's there on YouTube. Even the previous videos have been uploaded, I think. So you can go check the YouTube channel and you can find it. Okay, thank you so much. All right. So if you guys have anything, you can ask me. We can end the class. Okay. Okay, then we'll end the class then. Good night. Good luck. And yeah, join tomorrow. It's from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. Okay.